suffer from oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD. Symptoms of ODD include independent thought, rampant creativity, and failure to submit to authority. But now there's a solution. The good people at Pilfer can help you with their time-release, once-daily capsule, Compliacin. Your child won't be able to form his own opinions, let alone express them. It maintains your child's ability to go to a state-run school and perform simple tasks around the house. You won't have to worry about parenting, and the school won't have to deal with your kid asking questions. Compliacin. You'll go from this.
Quit telling me what to do! Quit telling me what to do! Quit telling me what to do!
To this.
Good morning, Mother. I love going to school. And this week we're learning all about how the government is our federal family and they're here to help us.
Compliacin. Talk to your school psychiatrist and ask for it by name.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to call. You can get in on the conversation with us. Bring up whatever's on your mind. It doesn't matter the topic. It's Free Talk Live. And in the studio with you tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Riley.
And Nikki.
And we have a lot of things to talk about. We already have a caller on the line. I titled the show tonight, Congress Censures Representative, because I thought it was kind of crazy that they're doing this official thing called censuring someone for her opinion about Palestine and Israel. We're going to get into that, but first, we're going to get to your phone calls and thoughts. Dave Ridley from the RidleyReport.com. I mean, just RidleyReport.com. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Ridley.
Hey, yet another New Hampshire government abuse. This one helped by the federal government, as is often the case. So this is a reminder that Ian Freeman is not the only person getting an excessive sentence for doing nothing really harmful. This is a drug case. I guess a guy named John Santiago, a.k.a. Freddie Muniz. They just gave him 20 years to life for having allegedly a pound of fentanyl.
Wow.
And allegedly intending to sell it.
Well, they can just say that you were intending to sell it if you have like bags in the car or over
Or
a
if you have like
amount.
cash or whatever. But yeah, a pound sounds like a lot.
That does sound like a lot of fentanyl, for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out where he's locked up, but it doesn't say.
Where is he from?
It's in New Hampshire, but I don't know exactly which town. It was Hillsborough County.
Oh, but it's in New Hampshire? Yeah, in Hillsborough County.
Yeah, Hillsborough County
Yeesh.
Superior Court. The DEA was involved. And it's a nice time to remind people that another time when the DEA was involved, they wound up in a shootout, shooting up, back and forth in a hotel and ruining the hotel. In Manchester. Remember when that happened about 4 years ago?
No.
I did not hear about that.
There was one I heard about in 2011 that killed an old lady, or it might have just injured her, but they were at the wrong house. They were shooting it. They were saying that they were looking for her grandson or something, but they somehow ended up at her house, and he wasn't even there, and they were shooting in, and they injured this old lady in Manchester because he had drugs, supposedly.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to write this guy, I guess you would just Google fentanyl sentence New Hampshire, and it's all over the news.
So
and someone probably has information there on where he is, but it's John Santiago.
Yeah, he's been sentenced already.
Yeah, 20 years to life, and in fact, it looks like maybe
that doesn't make sense to me, right? Because is it 20 years or is it life? What is? If he's already sentenced, right, doesn't that mean they would have already decided, how much time he's serving, or?
The Union Leader article says, quote, Santiago was sentenced in Hillsborough County Superior Court to a stand-committed sentence of 20 years to life, unquote. And there's a second 20-year sentence hanging over him that is currently suspended.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I see...
that's what it looks like.
I have a similar article pulled up on actually the Department of Justice, nh.gov. It's saying he had approximately half a kilo of fentanyl. This was in Hillsborough County. I wonder what town. It must have been, I'm assuming it's like out towards Nashua area. I think that's a little bit more popular in that neck of the woods. But either way, I mean, it's definitely... I have a hard time with this because I am not a fan of a lot of these drugs. I mean, I've seen way too many people die. I've like had to resuscitate like with my own hands way too many people because of this stuff. But it's tough because it's like people buying this stuff, like it's voluntary. If this dude is in jail, you know how many other people in Lawrence, Lowell, you know, like all of these other places where this stuff is really prevalent and really popular, like you can literally buy this anywhere. So
they're going to take his spot immediately.
That's the thing. Like, so this guy's in jail now, big whoop, someone else is going to be selling this.
And,
so it's
it's going to make the drug more expensive anyway. So, and more people, you're not going to change how many people want to buy fentanyl by locking somebody up. What you're going to change is the price and the way this drug is sold.
And
on
if
the
it's
streets.
more expensive than it should be naturally, then you're just going to have more people doing like crime in order to get it.
Yeah.
I mean, if we are in agreement that there's a problem with fentanyl and it's dangerous, that's not the point of argument. The point of argument is that this problem is happening in an environment of drug prohibition, not an environment of drug freedom.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
If we were having all kinds of problems with fentanyl in an environment of drug freedom, then you could start criticizing the drug freedom that you wanted. But, you know, in Portugal, when they legalized all this stuff, the drug problems went down. So I bet that wouldn't hold much water.
And here's my a lot of people will say, oh, well, in Portland, Oregon, you're having all kinds of crazy crime right now. And
I'm sure that was happening before.
And you were, but it has gotten worse. But also, there are other laws that make crime happen, like their leniency for homelessness, and they just give everybody money to do nothing, sit around, do nothing,
yeah,
to be
it's not
miserable.
an isolated
right. It's like there's so many other reasons why, and there's terrible gun laws.
Yeah,
it's like if you just suddenly legalized all drugs in New Hampshire, I'm 100% sure that you'd see a way different outcome because we have lenient gun laws.
We have more people carrying openly here in New Hampshire. It's just a different story altogether.
Yeah, I mean, like, in general, I think a huge problem because, like, obviously, like, the fentanyl epidemic, I mean, it feels like it kind of happened overnight. But really, it started, and the reason why a lot of the people are dying and were dying, especially in the very beginning, like when fentanyl was first introduced to this area, is because they thought they were getting heroin or Percocet or, you know, these other pills, right? So, but they were either pressed fentanyl or laced with fentanyl, and they didn't understand what they were getting. So that's why a lot of people were overdosing, because they thought they were getting one thing, they were getting another thing, and it was a lot stronger than what they were used to. So, and that's a side effect of drug prohibition, where people can't really have access to some of these testing materials. Is every addict going to test their bag before they shoot it?
No,
probably not.
They just want to shoot
but,
it.
I just don't see how making these things illegal is helping the issue.
I don't either, because what you're doing is you're allowing for people to not only engage in illegal, dangerous behavior, but you're not giving people the freedom to test their substances they're taking. You're not giving people the freedom to say, what am I taking? What's really going on here? You're not giving people the ability to have this open discussion on what kind of drugs I want to put in my body and things like that.
Well, think of it. So think of like a drugstore. Like you go to CVS, right? All of those drugs are legal.
Absolutely, and they're measured.
Yeah,
they're tested. We know that I'm getting ibuprofen, but if I can't test my substances because it's illegal, and I can't take it down to a shop and say, hey, can you test this for me? I want to know if it's fentanyl or meth or whatever, then that causes problems.
I'm even going to go beyond that. And it's like, if you could go to CVS or Walmart or whatever and buy some of these, like, quote unquote, street drugs, And I don't think it should be regulated by the government like, pharmaceuticals are. Of course not. But I think if you didn't have to go into like a back alley to buy it and buy it from like some sketchy guy on the street, if it was just like more, not normalized, but just people are going to do it regardless. You know what I mean? Like people are going to do these things. So if they were able to get something that's a little bit more controlled, tested, it's like, oh, I buy this brand and I know this brand is reputable. Like I've done it before. It's just a little bit more, there's more consistency, where it's just like, oh, well, I bought this bag off of a new guy and it was way stronger. And like next thing you know, this girl's like dead in an alleyway and there's nobody there to resuscitate her. Like this is why people are dying. And
this is how evil cops are. I went to a hearing in New Hampshire at the State House for a bill that actually rated this bill and reviewed it for NHLA, the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance.
Okay.
And it was really good. It was actually our state rep here in the ward that we live in Keene. She put in a bill that was going to make it not illegal to have a drug testing kit when you're found with drugs. So
that's great.
Right now, if you have a drug testing kit and you're found with drugs, I think they have to be together, then that's a paraphernalia charge. Well, actually, I don't know if it is right now because I don't know if it passed. I don't remember at this point. But I went to testify and say, I think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
And a cop goes up there and testifies that he doesn't want this to be legal. This is just asking people to become drug sellers. And it's like,
no, it's not. What
disgusting.
An idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, that literally doesn't even make sense. Like I don't understand how anyone would come to that conclusion. The only thing drug testing kits are going to do is make it safer.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, even if you do have a drug dealer using them, at least they know what is in the stuff that they're distributing. You know what I mean?
Ilk have obviously failed at their goal, if it really is their goal, to stop people from using drugs, using the means that they use today with the laws and stuff. So not allowing people to at least be able to make sure that they're safe when they're taking the drug, because they obviously aren't going to stop, is just evil. And stupid.
When it comes to drugs and guns, I'm of the mindset, let's engage in harm reduction. When it comes to guns, if it's your first time with a gun, let's go over gun safety. If it's your first time with a substance, whether it be marijuana, whether it be cocaine or whatever, test your substances, measure your dosage, know what your limits are, don't go over those limits, and stay well below those limits if you're going to use it. But otherwise, I would say don't use these substances. These substances can potentially harm you. And, generally avoidance is the best policy when it comes to drugs anyway. So, but if you're going to use responsibly. Know what you're getting. Make sure you're using clean needles or whatever. Make sure you know your substance. Make sure you've had it tested. Make sure it's clean. So harm reduction is extremely important.
Well, is that all you had about this guy with his case, Ridley?
Well, it's just police are always saying, well, we're just enforcing the law. And then you go to the State House and you can't walk across the hall without tripping over a cop who's there to testify in favor of maintaining, the drug war and eliminating your freedoms.
That's such a great point. Yeah, that is such a great point. They are always saying that. They're always saying, well, I'm not the one making the law. I'm just enforcing it. I'm just doing my job. Don't get mad at me. But you're right. Every time I've been to a bill hearing, there's been a cop there, except maybe like the secession bill. There's been a cop there saying, no, this needs to stay illegal. We need our money. Actually, I'm not even joking. They will give as one of the reasons that they give for the thing needing to stay illegal, like whether it's DMT or whatever, is because of revenue for the cops. Like, oh, we need this for our budget. We need to be able to pull people over for this. It's crazy.
So imagine criminalizing a drug that occurs naturally in your brain, like DMT.
Yeah, like, are we going to criminalize melatonin next?
And what if they took the $60,000 a year they're going to be spending keeping this guy in jail for 20, 30 years and use that to for harm mitigation, like you're talking about, like educating people on how to be safer? Think how many lives they could save doing that instead of ruining this guy's life.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's just going to go to cops because buying their...
They don't actually care, and that's the thing. I can't tell if... Maybe it's a little bit of both. They don't care, and they're idiots. Because I talk to a lot of people about the drug war and... like how to make drug use safer, because that's what I'm really concerned about. Like, I don't want the crime that surrounds addiction, and also like people dying. Like, so like I like where Riley's coming from with like the harm reduction. Like, these are, if we're doing anything, like this is how we should be helping people. Or making treatment more available, or
let's talk
whatever.
about the consequences of taking certain substances like meth, heroin, cocaine, fentanyl, ecstasy. These things that people view as street drugs, these chemically laced substances that people want to use.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many better ways to like genuinely help people, and I think just throwing people in jail isn't the solution. And there's also like so much misinformation about, like, even so I'm literally reading off of the Department of Justice website, and they said, so apparently this guy, the half a kilo breaks down to 473 grams of fentanyl, which is enough to kill nearly 250,000 people. That's a lie. That's not true.
Right.
That doesn't sound. I literally, like, I think the average person that's like an addict and is uses 1 to 5 grams a day.
That's
so if there's
of fentanyl.
Only like less than 500 and we're killing 250,000 people, I mean, maybe like 250,000 like children or like completely opiate naive people. But if you're like using these substances and you have a tolerance, like, so just the way they're painting that, like, right, that's like the fear mongering, right? They're like, and I'm not saying that these drugs are good. I think they're awful. I don't think any person should use fentanyl. It's an awful, terrible thing.
But
that's the thing,
absolutely.
right? Like that's the thing. It's like you're lying about it. Like, this isn't an actual, like, legitimate representation of the potency of the drug. I mean, it's a huge misrepresentation, and it's like, we need to have open and honest conversations about this. But like the lies, like any person that reads that on this website is going to be like, they're full of it. You know what I mean? Like, they either don't know what they're talking about.
I honestly wouldn't have sat there and done the math. I wouldn't really think about it. But
yeah.
And most people probably don't know off the top of their heads how much anyone's taking.
But I mean, just look at those numbers. Like, even if you like aren't really sure, look at those numbers. Like, 473 grams kills 250, like a 250,000 people.
I feel like most
like
people
that's kind of crazy.
I think most people would read that and think, oh, well, the Department of Justice says this must be true.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm not saying necessarily that I would do that, but I also don't really think like that. Like, I wouldn't sit there and immediately start like dividing, like, but because I don't even know how much one person takes. But you work in that industry, and I'm not saying that makes it okay. I'm saying it makes it worse, kind of, because they just know people are just going to take their word for it.
Yeah, well, and like if you like watch any documentaries or anything like that, they're like, all it takes is enough fentanyl, like a grain of salt, and it will kill you. And it's like, okay, maybe if it's really strong, but it's just like. Like I said, like, there's no regulation of this stuff because it's illegal and it's so underground. And I don't think there should be like government regulation, but like human regulation of the people.
Exactly. Things with like agreements across industries, or just like people who buy it being like, I'm not gonna buy from this company because they don't have X.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, when you buy like Motrin from CVS, you're like, okay, this is my favorite brand because I take this one and it works better. I don't like the generic brand because I don't like the fillers in it.
And if you hear somebody started dying from one brand of Motrin,
you're not going to take it.
Stop using it. Yeah,
also,
exactly.
The thing to remember too is that drugs still end up in prisons, and if you're a parent listening to this and you're really worried about your kids taking drugs, maybe talk to them about harm reduction, or talk to them about, hey, our policy as a family is we don't do drugs in this house.
And
education.
The other thing I don't like about this story that Ridley brought in is the thought crime aspect of it. It just should never be illegal to have an intention.
Yeah, the intent to distribute
can't be proven. Like, you can't, that's not proof. Because somebody has a lot of fentanyl doesn't prove that they wanted to sell it. Even if it's so much that it's like, oh, more than likely, it's not proof of what was going on in somebody's freaking brain. And that makes me mad. Like, Ian's in jail right now with a guy who he got, I don't know how much time he's in for, but he got intent to distribute, and he swore, he's like, no, and like, seriously, that's just how much I was using. I was just using that much whatever drug.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. And I mean, so like, let's use a different example. Like when we're talking about like large quantities of stuff. So say I have 100 pounds of flour just because I like to buy things in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean, I mean, you could say, 100 pounds of flour, you're never going to use that much.
You might be willing to sell flour on the black market.
Exactly. So it's like, am I selling the flour? No, not necessarily. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, but that actually wasn't my intention.
Such a good point. Like people never would, that wouldn't even cross someone's mind in other products.
But that's the thing. Like when we're talking about drugs, it's like, he, without a shadow of the doubt, is absolutely going to sell that. Maybe he was. Probably was. But maybe he wasn't. And that's the thing. And it's like, you don't know his intention. And it's like, you can't read his mind. And yeah, it doesn't seem right to throw people in prison for what they're thinking or what their intentions are or aren't.
Right. It's like if you
can't prove that. You really can't prove that, especially if the person admits to it, that's one thing.
Yeah, and cops don't want to have to work hard enough to actually be like catching someone who is the drug dealer of this town and stopping it. They just want to be like, well, we caught a drug dealer without having to do any kind of actual work at all.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they should have to work, but I'm just saying that's how they do it. That they want to be able to announce that they did something really big and great.
Yeah.
Without any work.
Just remember, drugs keep winning the war on drugs.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that people get punished for it like this, the more dangerous the drug war gets, the more casualties. And if we just put this stuff in CVS, like Nikki and Riley were talking about, everyone would be a lot safer from people committing crimes in order to get their drugs and from criminals stealing their money from them to put this guy in jail. Like, you are paying for that. You're getting stolen from in order to pay for this guy to go to jail. Ridley says it's $60,000 a year. It's a lot.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. I wouldn't advocate for putting something like fentanyl or cocaine or speed or whatever in CVS. I just think we should talk about harm reduction if someone's going to partake.
I mean, I think, you know what, and I'm not a fan of like any of these drugs really, but I don't think they're a good idea to use. I think typically like sobriety is better. But I will also say I don't agree, or I don't think the majority of the drugs, like the pharmaceuticals in CVS right now, most of those are also dangerous.
Right.
And I would absolutely not take them.
Right.
So, I mean, but I still think that people have, like Tylenol, that's killing your liver, but you still have the right to take it if you feel like it. You know what I mean? Like,
and also,
it's not
CVS
up to me.
Has the right to sell it. Like, I think that is a really terrible crime to tell business owners that they can't make money by selling something. Like, CVS having a product on their shelves that people want to buy is feeding so many families, is bringing so much prosperity, just CVS alone, not to mention like if it was in Walmart and everything else. And I also don't think that it's a good idea to take fentanyl. It kind of goes without saying, but I guess some people do need to hear you say it. Yeah, I think it's a bad idea to take fentanyl or heroin, and I would never and have never done those drugs. But it's not up to me if you want to take it or if you want to sell it in your business. And thank you for the call, Ridley. That is very interesting, pretty sad. You know, an abuse from the government of New Hampshire. The government calling itself New Hampshire. 603-283-6160. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Membership has its privileges. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Are you a AAA member? Nice to have, just in case, but think beyond breakdowns and dead batteries. At AAA.com, you can peruse discounts on tickets to concerts, games, and movies and amusement parks, including Disney World and Universal. When you book a hotel room, look for a special rate. And keep scrolling for Office Max and Office Depot and Omaha Steaks, and lots of restaurants have member discounts too. Ditto AARP, whose members also find air travel and cruise deals and tour packages. It won't take long to recoup your $16 annual dues. And while the American Association of Retired Persons is dedicated to people over 50, there is no minimum age to join. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. The UN says 92 of its relief workers for Palestinian refugees have been killed in Gaza since the start of recent hostilities between Hamas and Israel. This is the highest number of UN aid workers killed in a conflict in the history of the United Nations. Will Denslow reports.
United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says the number of UN workers killed in Gaza over the past month is more than any comparable period in the organisation's history. UNRWA says at least 66 internally displaced people have been killed while sheltering at their facilities in Gaza since the war began on October 7th. On that day, Hamas conducted an assault on Israel, killing roughly 1,400 people and took more than 240 hostages. The Ministry of Health in Gaza says more than 10,000 people have died since then, as Israel has moved to destroy Hamas in the Palestinian enclave. Guterres says the huge loss of civilian life in the Gaza Strip shows that something is clearly wrong with Israel's military operations. William Denslow, New York.
The Commissioner of London's police force is resisting pressure to ban a pro-Palestine march on Remembrance Weekend, when the UK traditionally remembers soldiers who died in World War I. Stuart Smith reports.
The Metropolitan Police has asked the organisers to urgently reconsider the timing of the march, but has stopped short of banning it. It claims officers can safeguard remembrance events and keep the public safe, in part by forcing the march to take place away from the most sensitive areas of London. The Prime Minister says he will hold the Commissioner accountable for that. Rishi Sunak says his personal view is that the marches are disrespectful, and he'll meet the head of the police force to discuss what measures they're taking. The pro-Palestine protests have been held each Saturday for the past few weeks in response to Israel's fight against Hamas in Gaza after Hamas killed hundreds of civilians in Israel.
Lawmakers in the United States have subpoenaed Joe Biden's son and brother as part of their impeachment inquiry into the president and his family. Congress's House Oversight Committee is seeking depositions from Hunter and James Biden, as well as business associate Rob Walker. From Washington, Benji Hire reports.
It's a remarkable step, but one that Republican Party politicians have been threatening as they intensify their investigation. They allege that the Bidens engaged in corruption, influence peddling, bribery, that they benefited financially from Joe's position then as vice president. The White House vigorously denies any wrongdoing and says that Joe Biden had no involvement in his son Hunter's business dealings, arguing this impeachment effort is a political move. There is no clear evidence, the administration insists, to support claims of high crimes and misdemeanors. That'll do little, though, to halt these attempts to bring down the president as the country enters election year. Benji.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is the number you can call and bring up whatever's on your mind. It doesn't matter the topic. There's no taboo topics here. It's Free Talk Live. And with you in the studio tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Riley.
And Nikki.
And we were just talking in the last segment about the war on drugs and showing everybody the score. So far, drugs are winning.
I love that. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that meme. It's like a barbed wire fence, and then there's like a cat or like a raccoon or something like going, and I'm describing this horribly, but in between the barbed wire, and it's like the war on drugs, and then drugs is the cat like very easily sneaking through it.
I bet they can do that pretty easily. They're crazy. You can just get into anything.
Yeah, it's pretty hilarious.
So yeah, the war on drugs. Update, drugs are winning. But moving on, I had this story from apnews.com that I think is pretty crazy and interesting. Apparently, the House voted, the federal United States government goons gang group.
The parasite class in D.C.
Yep, called the Congress, well, at least the House of Representatives, voted to censure Representative Rashida Tlaib over her Israel-Hamas rhetoric in a stunning rebuke.
What does that mean? I thought you were saying censor before.
Yeah, I was wondering exactly what the difference is, but basically it's a legal term, and it means that they're rebuking her, telling her she can't say stuff
They're
like
just
that.
basically saying, "Oh, she's out of line and can't be saying such things as a representative."
Yep,
Well,
it's
that's
a
dumb
punishment.
because she can say whatever she wants. But
Right.
okay.
It's crazy. I mean, it's not even like I haven't read exactly everything she's said. I don't know that I would agree with everything she said. And I already am on the side of she shouldn't be told she can't say it.
She's a state rep.
Yeah, a House of Representatives rep.
So, as far as I know, right, a state rep represents the people, right? That's the
lore.
That's what we're told anyway. We're told
That's
they
what we're
supposedly
told.
represent us.
Yep. So, yeah, we choose these people to represent us. From what I've seen, there are quite a few people in the U.S. right now that do support Palestine.
Right.
So it sounds to me like if she's like actually representing people, I'm sure people in her district have the same opinions as her. So it's kind of crazy for them to say that as a rep, she's not allowed to say these things when she is kind of, I mean, I'm sure somebody in her district has that same opinion and she is representing them. And so you know what I mean?
The other thing is she's just saying things. She's not making laws. She should be allowed to say anything, even if she's the only one that's thinking it. But
the thing too is that the United States Constitution guarantees the freedom of speech in the First Amendment and doesn't say, oh, it's limited to only certain classes of people or these certain classes of people cannot exercise their free speech. So whether you agree with this representative or not about Palestine and the conflict in the Middle East, it doesn't give you the right to say, well, she should be censured and not allowed to speechify anymore.
Yeah, we know freedom of speech isn't really an actual thing in the United States, though.
Yeah, we do.
It is scary to me that they're just acting like, oh, there's only one correct opinion in this war.
Yeah.
Like, I hadn't seen them really come out and say that yet, and this kind of is doing that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, if you, like, all of the news stations, like, everywhere I look, it's like pro-Israel, pro-Israel, pro-Israel. We're giving Israel money. And I've said on the show before, I'm not rooting for either side of this war. I am supporting the individuals who are being harmed by the actions of governments and militaries. Like, that is whose side I am on. The people, you know what I mean?
That's my position too. Although I will say that I was raised in a Christian group, a Christian religion.
Yeah.
And we were taught that Jerusalem is the Holy Land, that Judea is the Holy Land, and we got to support Israel because they're God's chosen people. And yet, Islam is made up of people who say they're also God's chosen people.
Right,
so who's really to decide this?
And I think that's why a lot of people are pro-Israel is because of their religious beliefs.
Right.
Because a lot of the people I see that are hardcore backing Israel in my personal life, they are all like devout Christians or Jewish people. And it's kind of gross to like say that other people should die and have their homes destroyed because of your religion. Like maybe do some reflection and, like maybe if you believe that maybe either, your religion's off or your morals are off.
Right.
Because that doesn't really sound...
And maybe take some time to reflect and be like, wait a minute, if someone were to say that about me and my religion, how would I feel?
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, I totally agree with and support self-defense, but I don't think it's self-defense when these people already got shot at and killed. Those people who shot at and killed them already killed themselves.
Yeah.
And now you're harming, bombing, destroying the homes of completely innocent people.
Well, that's the thing. Like, this is how war works, right? It's just like going back and forth with the killing and the destruction, with the intent to win and to conquer.
Just for me, just to be clear, like the horrors inflicted on the Jews and the Palestinians or whoever, or when Hamas attacked, are horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, the way Israel's handling this, or the Israeli government is handling this, is also just as horrible.
I agree.
Yeah. I mean, and like, I'm not defending Hamas because obviously, like, those are terrorists and what they did was absolutely horrific and disgusting. but they were responding to what Israel did to quote unquote their people to begin with. So, and this is what I'm saying, like, this is how war works. It's back and forth with the killing and destruction until we blow up the entire world. You know what I mean? And it's like, if they could just sit down and talk like human beings and discuss, like, okay, like, let's come to some sort of peaceful agreement. I mean, that's how you solve conflicts. When we're raising children, right, and kids are hitting and punching each other and fighting, we say, no, you're not supposed to do that. That's not nice.
But we forget it as adults. We think that,
it's crazy, right?
War is the best option here. We could go bomb people back to the Stone Age. And maybe they'll be good when they're bombed back to the Stone Age.
It's like, what do you tell kids? Talk it out. Use your words. And it's like, why can't governments do that? And these are the people that are ruling the world.
The Jews?
Well, no, yeah, definitely. But I just mean like governments in general.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's like the most like horrific, violent, crazy people, and like that's who is quote unquote in control.
And you can't
it's
reason
terrifying.
with them.
You can't. Yeah, exactly.
It's hard to really reason with people who are being unreasonable.
Terrorists.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you can't negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah.
We do have a caller. I'm gonna go to. It says Crazy Kyle. Crazy Kyle, you're on the line with us. What's on your mind?
How you doing? Well, it's constitutional, Kyle.
Oh.
But I have a conviction against. I called a while back about my car being stolen when I was at the FBI filing a public corruption complaint.
Okay, I remember you. I remember that.
Yeah, so they substantiated my complaints about the officer doing cyber terrorism to me, and they told me state, local, and federal prosecutors have told me to drop off the cybercrime substantiated report by the NYPD to federal agencies such as Department of Justice or FBI. But
what do you mean by that? What were they doing to cyber terrorize you?
So they send all my emails and phone calls and texts and all that through a proxy, and they decide who I get to talk to. So I have to give this information to prosecutors in person. And it's about the Department of Homeland Security, because that's the division of the NYPD without jurisdiction that did it. So when I go down to the FBI building, contractors for the Department of Homeland Security will not allow me in the building to give evidence.
Huh.
Yeah, they beat me up one time, broke my rib. Other times they've told me I don't have. I have video of this I could share with you. But another time they told me I don't have any First, Fourth, Sixth, Eighth, or 10th Amendment rights. And I asked when the marshal came out, and he said, yeah, it's because of local policy.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Really crazy.
I believe it, because they take away plenty of your rights as soon as you step on federal property.
You see, the thing is, I know how they made a law abridging the Constitution, and I can't. And they're telling me to email the cybercrime information that's still ongoing. So it just doesn't make sense.
Well, any update about your car? Did you ever find the car?
Oh yeah, I got it back, and then I proved. I'm still in Georgia. My mail got stolen. My insurance lapsed. I reported my mail being stolen a few months before to the local police, and then I found the person through a cell phone app that tells you what cell phone you're hooked up to. I was hooked up to this guy's house. Sent all the information to the police department, and then when I left, they pulled me over an hour later and told me I didn't have insurance, and I was like, well, that's part of my complaint, that I'm not getting my mail. And then they impounded my car.
Dang.
And they did it a second time. Well, they just reached into my car, took the keys, and impounded it. When I told them on video, I'm not committing to a search of my car. And I told them it was a whistleblower, and then they threatened me with arrest.
Do you have a YouTube or anything where you post the video where they broke your ribs?
I could send you that one. I'll post it at FTL_Bon.
Bonnie, yeah, on Twitter.
Oh, it's Bonnie.
Yep.
On Twitter, yeah. My Twitter is at Sasquatch Sounds.
Oh, okay.
And because it's not it's apparently it's a mythical thing that's happening to me, and it's not real. I even made a short documentary that's called Live Fictional Movie, in parentheses, I Want to Kill the President. And the Secret Service came and talked to me,
Whoa.
And I told them what was going on. And they didn't arrest me because they kind of knew it was true because of the substantiated reports for the NYPD.
Huh.
Isn't that amazing?
That's crazy. Well, thank you for the call.
Thank you for the update.
You can call in with any other updates if you get more updates about your process of complaining about that. It's interesting.
Yeah, that sounds crazy. I did not catch the first time he called in.
It was like over a year ago.
Oh, so it was a long time ago. Oh,
Yeah,
I was under the impression it would just
it's been a while.
happened.
I wouldn't remember that call. I mean, I listened to all of Free Talk Live episodes.
Right, yeah.
I mean,
I remember what it was.
Piling up.
It was me, Ian, and Mark were on, and it was one of the days after Ian's trial. So, we went home after Ian's trial that day and did the show, and definitely Mark thought that he was a crazy
Maybe that's why the caller ID.
Yeah. Somebody, whoever did the show, named him Crazy Kyle in here. I'm sorry about that. I'll call you Kyle next time.
Constitutional Kyle?
Yeah, Constitutional Kyle or something like that. And then I'll just start saying Crazy Sarah, Crazy Ricky, and everybody else can be crazy. Anyways,
Crazy Riley.
Crazy Riley.
has a good ring to it, you know what I mean?
Sounds like an old Western cowboy bad guy or something.
Right.
Crazy Riley's in town.
That's funny.
So we're going to go back to this APnews.com article. It says House votes to censure Rep. Rashida Tlaib over her Israel-Hamas rhetoric in a stunning rebuke. Says the House voted late Tuesday to censure Democratic Rep. Rashida Tlaib of Michigan, the only Palestinian American in Congress.
Oh, so she's from Palestine or has some heritage in Palestine.
Right.
Okay, so of course, I don't want to say of course, but I'm not surprised that she's supporting them. You know what I mean?
And she represents Michigan. So to your point from earlier, there's lots of Muslims there.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the people I know that are from Israel, immigrated here from Israel, they are supporting Israel because that's where they're from, right? Those are their people. So it kind of does make sense. I mean, this isn't always the case. And I don't think you should necessarily blindly support somebody just because you're from there. But obviously, if you're from a place or your parents are from a place or your grandparents are from a place, it makes it a lot easier for you to relate to those people, right? So I just think it's crazy that they're trying to censure her.
For her opinions about it.
Well, yeah, it's first of all, we already established she should be able to say whatever she wants because of the First Amendment. But also, obviously, she's going to hold this opinion. She's from Palestine.
It's
Palestinian.
If, a Mexican or South American person was saying, listen, I believe that we should have open borders because, those are good people. I've been there. A lot of my family's from Mexico. Yeah. And then we censure her because, that's technically against our law to cross illegally right now. That's just crazy.
And it's how do we, so, and to that point, it's how do we make change if we don't, talk about stuff?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I think my big concern about this whole thing is that, it's heated rhetoric. We're all fighting each other over this silly idea that it doesn't really affect us here in the United States, except we get a lot of our oil from the Middle East. Mm-hmm. And so with this war going on, we will definitely experience higher oil prices in the future.
Yeah, but I think that it would affect us in some way like that no matter what, but we as in our government has already gotten us involved, and that really sucks.
Yeah, and the money that they're, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's affecting people. And just, I think anything that's so divisive, we've seen this with elections, right? I mean, any Trump election has been super divisive.
Absolutely.
War, very divisive. Whenever we're picking a side as people, it makes it very divisive.
It was very unpopular to be anti-war if you're talking about Vietnam or going
what
to
are you?
Iraq.
You're not even
9/11.
American.
Right.
Be a patriot.
Right.
And it was also unpatriotic to criticize the war in Iraq. I remember when the Democrats were criticizing the war in Iraq and Afghanistan in the early 2000s. I remember that because I was doing a political show with a Democrat friend of mine from college, and we were talking about it. And now the Democrats seem to be war hawks, just like the Republicans.
Right. Yep. That's pretty shocking to me too.
Two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely.
Right. When I was a kid, that's how I knew like Democrats were against war and things like that, and a lot of the things I knew Democrats as when I was a kid, it's just not that way anymore.
Nope.
Okay, so it says the 234 to 188 tally, so like 234 voted to censure and 188 didn't. Came after enough Democrats joined with Republicans to censure Tlaib, a punishment one step below expulsion from the House.
Wow.
It's crazy that they can just decide to expel someone from the House when her representatives voted for her.
Yeah, right. And it's I don't really believe in like any of this, right? But if we're, like if they're going to pretend that this is how the government works, like that's insane.
Right.
Because like her people voted her in. Mm-hmm. They allegedly wanted her to represent them.
And why do somebody's representatives from
another
New Jersey
place
and Arizona get
that's
to
the thing. And that's the
kick her
point.
out?
That's the point, right? Because and this is the the facade of the U.S. government, but like allegedly this is how it works. We have this big country. We have different states. We have different state reps. And the state reps are supposed to represent people in their district. That's why we vote them in, because it's like, okay, well, this person, I agree with them. I think they do a good job representing the people, whatever you vote them in. So it's crazy that senators or other state reps in another place, another country, or not another country, I mean, another state across the country. Yeah, it feels like other countries, right? But in another state across the country, far away, that don't know her people, could be like, no, she can't represent them anymore.
Right.
Well, they clearly wanted her to represent them because they voted her in. And like I said, like this is all facade. I don't really believe in any of this crap.
And maybe this
but like
is a good thing because of that. Maybe this will show enough people that it doesn't work the way you're taught in school that it's supposed to work.
No, it
doesn't. It says that it's a step below from expulsion from the House. The 3-term Congresswoman has long been a target of criticism for her views on the decades-long conflict in the Middle East. The debate on the censure resolution on Tuesday afternoon was emotional and intense. Republican Rep. Rich McCormick of Georgia pushed the measure in response to what he called Tlaib's promotion of anti-Semitic rhetoric. He said she has, quote, levied unbelievable falsehoods about our greatest ally, Israel, and the attack on October 7th. That's so crazy when I hear people saying, like, Israel is our greatest ally.
Since when?
I've met more Germans in my life. I've met more Mexicans in my life.
Well, not even just that. It's like, I've never heard of Israel being our greatest ally or an ally,
what did
period,
they do for us?
Until, like, I've never heard of this rhetoric until this war. Like, and like I said, I don't pay very much attention
I've
to
probably heard this
foreign
rhetoric
relations
before the war, but like Nikki, I haven't been paying much attention. I just know that I was brought up to believe that Israel was always the good guy, no matter what they did.
Yeah. Well, you can't be against Israel because then you're anti-Semitic,
right?
Or just anti. You're going against the Mormon Church or whatever. Christian church you were brought up in. So it goes on, it says, with other Democrats standing by her side, Tlaib defended her stance, saying she will not be silenced, quote, will not be silenced, and I will not let you distort my words, unquote. She added that her criticism of Israel has always been directed towards its government and its leadership under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Quote, it is important to separate people and government, she said. The idea that criticizing the government of Israel is anti-Semitic sets a very dangerous precedent. And she's so right about that. Continuing, the quote says, and it's been used to silence diverse voices speaking up for human rights across our nation, unquote. And I just have to agree that she's completely right in all of this. It's a dangerous precedent to say that anytime you criticize this government, you're being anti-Semitic. You're being, something that no one wants to be called. You shouldn't be able to criticize this government, or you hate everyone that lives there. It's just like, I criticize the UK government kind of a lot. They pass a lot of terrible laws. The Canadian government. No one calls me Englishman hater.
You're racist.
Yeah,
against
racist
the
against
British
them,
people.
Canadians.
It's one thing to hate a group of people. It's another thing to hate the government and their policies and think that, any criticism of the government is a bad idea. But I say criticize the government, criticize your leaders. take a hard look at them. Anyone you can't criticize is the person that's a dictator over you.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
It says that criticism reached new heights after the October 7th attack by the terrorist group Hamas left hundreds of Israelis dead and scores injured. Tlaib, who has family in the West Bank, came under heavy reproval after she failed to immediately condemn Hamas after the attack. What does that even mean? Like, she didn't condemn them fast enough? That's just crazy.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
It'd be one thing if she was saying, "Oh, I love Hamas."
I didn't publicly condemn Hamas.
Me either.
I didn't
Was
either.
am I going to be prosecuted?
Oh yeah, Nikki, you're now fired from Free Talk Live forever.
I didn't make a Facebook status about.
You didn't sign
what I mean?
the Google Doc, the Free Talk Live Google Doc, where we were all going against.
Wait,
Hamas?
there's a Google Doc that I missed?
Yes.
We'll forward it to you.
Okay.
Well, you didn't sign it fast enough, so you're already back.
Yeah, you gotta go.
All right. I'm out of here.
It says all Democrats initially stood by Tlaib and helped defeat the first censure resolution against her last week. But since then, many of her colleagues, including prominent Jewish members, have been more conflicted about her rhetoric about the war, especially because of a slogan she has used frequently that is widely seen as calling for the eradication of Israel. And this is an interesting slogan I've heard before, and I can't say that it sounds like it's asking for violence to me. It's okay, wait, I might be saying it wrong. I should probably pull up Google, but I'm pretty sure it's from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. But it doesn't say anything about killing people.
That reminds me of that American song. Oh, what is that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just remember I used to sing it in like elementary school. This land is your land.
Oh,
you know that song?
Yeah, I remember that song.
Land, this land is my land. That's kind of what it like sounds like to me. You know what I mean? Like that just sounds like these people want freedom and they don't want to be murdered. Is that anti-Semitic to not want to be murdered by Israel?
Okay, I found it. I found the exact thing was what I said is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Unquote. Like that's the whole thing. I don't understand why.
But in America, that's like a fun kid's song. You know what I mean? It's cool if you're talking about that. You know, if you're talking about America or whatever.
Right.
But the second you're talking about like people in Palestine,
it's
being
anti-Semitic.
free,
It's bad.
That's crazy.
So I pulled this up. It's from the American Jewish Committee. I don't exactly know what that is, but it says translate hate. From the river to the sea, it says, the catch-all phrase symbolizing Palestinian control over the entire territory of Israel's borders from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. And we'll get into their little subtitle here, why it's anti-Semitic. Free Talk Live, more coming up. Don't go anywhere.
603-283-6160.
Thank you, Riley. More coming up.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen Line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. The UN says 92 of its relief workers for Palestinian refugees have been killed in Gaza since the start of recent hostilities between Hamas and Israel. This is the highest number of UN aid workers killed in a conflict in the history of the United Nations. Will Denslow reports.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the number of UN workers killed in Gaza over the past month is more than any comparable period in the organisation's history. UNRWA says at least 66 internally displaced people have been killed while sheltering at their facilities in Gaza since the war began on October 7th. On that day, Hamas conducted an assault on Israel, killing roughly 1,400 people and took more than 240 hostages. The Ministry of Health in Gaza says more than 10,000 people have died since then, as Israel has moved to destroy Hamas in the Palestinian enclave. Guterres says the huge loss of civilian life in the Gaza Strip shows that something is clearly wrong with Israel's military operations. William Denslow, New York.
The Commissioner of London's police force is resisting pressure to ban a pro-Palestine march on Remembrance Weekend, when the UK traditionally remembers soldiers who died in World War I. Stuart Smith reports.
The Metropolitan Police has asked the organisers to urgently reconsider the timing of the march, but has stopped short of banning it. It claims officers can safeguard remembrance events and keep the public safe, in part by forcing the march to take place away from the most sensitive areas of London. The Prime Minister says he will hold the Commissioner accountable for that. Rishi Sunak says his personal view is that the marches are disrespectful, and he'll meet the head of the police force to discuss what measures they're taking. The pro-Palestine protests have been held each Saturday for the past few weeks in response to Israel's fight against Hamas in Gaza after Hamas killed hundreds of civilians in Israel. Stuart Smith, London.
Lawmakers in the United States have subpoenaed Joe Biden's son and brother as part of their impeachment inquiry into the president and his family. Congress's House Oversight Committee is seeking depositions from Hunter and James Biden, as well as business associate Rob Walker. From Washington, Benji Hire reports.
It's a remarkable step, but one that Republican Party politicians have been threatening as they intensify their investigation. They allege that the Bidens engaged in corruption, influence peddling, bribery, that they benefited financially from Joe's position then as vice president. The White House vigorously denies any wrongdoing and says that Joe Biden, now president of course, had no involvement in his son Hunter's business dealings. Benji Hire, Washington.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, with more today on the crisis over Gaza. On Monday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel now plans to play an overall security role in Gaza indefinitely. He provided no details, but the suggestion indicates he has no plans, at least on security, to partner with President Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority. He and his Fatah group control the West Bank, govern it in a far more liberal way than Hamas, and are interested in a two-state solution with Israel. But in Israel, Matt Fry of the UK's Channel 4 News says President Abbas is no longer considered a substantial player.
This man is 87 years old. He looks visibly very tired, and he's got no mandate. I mean, the last election in the West Bank was in 2006. They've been cancelled ever since, partly because the Israelis have made it impossible for them to hold meaningful elections, but also because they don't want to hold elections, because guess what? If there was an election in the West Bank today, it wouldn't be Fatah or the PLO that would win it. It would be probably Hamas. And so at the same time, here is Antony Blinken and Joe Biden saying, we are sticking to the two-state solution. No one believes in it anymore. The world has moved on, sadly. But it's still the only viable solution on the ground if there's to be peace.
And so whenever the military standoff over Gaza ends, there is still no certainty about the future governance of the territory. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. The UN says 92 workers have been killed in Gaza in the recent Israel-Hamas conflict. The UN chief says there's clearly something wrong with Israel's military operations given the number of civilians killed. London's police commissioner says there's no security reason to ban a pro-Palestine march set for Remembrance Day weekend. And in the United States, the brother and son of President Biden, James and Hunter, are subpoenaed to give testimony to a House impeachment inquiry. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. And that's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone reporting.
The FBI has successfully executed a raid on the Visa Corporation, exposing what could be the largest credit card scam in U.S. history. According to authorities, the Visa syndicate for years fooled millions of Americans by issuing convincing-looking credit cards carefully designed to dupe consumers into spending far more money than they had. Investigators believe the fraudulent corporation also lured victims in with enticing rewards programs and free gifts, thereby trapping them in a spiral of debt they could never hope to repay. According to the results of a groundbreaking new study, 96% of humans would rather be a singing, dancing animatronic bear. The study finds that a great majority of people on the planet would prefer to trade in their regular lives for one in which they sat on a plastic log, strummed a banjo, and sang songs on a stage with all their goofy bear friends. Respondents also stated that not being a sentient human being with feelings of doubt, sadness, and pain contributed to the decision.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 is that phone number you can call to get in on the conversation. And you can bring up whatever's on your mind. It's Free Talk Live, so that's what that means. 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, it's me, Bonnie,
Riley,
and Nikki.
And I'm just going to go straight to the phones. We have John in Nebraska. John, what's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I was just going to talk about the censure real quick. I think that the lady, she has a like a family member in Palestine. I don't know if it's like her grandma or something. I'm not really sure, but I just think that I think that Republicans were kind of gaslighting her.
Right.
That or a lot of them just don't understand the issues, or they just I don't know. I just kind of feel like this whole thing it's just crazy. I mean, she's coming out and she broke down what she said. She said she didn't mean it the way that they were trying to define it. Like they're trying to make it sound like she's like anti-Israel or something. She came out and I'm pretty sure that she said it's not the way she meant. What is it, from the river to the sea or whatever she was talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I think that they kind of took that out of context or something. But I kind of feel like with all the innocent people that are, it's just way too much going on over there right now. We don't know everything either. I'm pretty sure like the UN is like saying, that there's war crimes going on there. They got to investigate all that stuff.
We also don't know who the good guys are.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things that are disappointing. I think now's a good time to like start looking into like websites. I don't know. There's one. I think it's called Open Secrets. Is it like OpenSecrets.com or something?
Okay.
To see where all the money goes, because like I've heard people say, we send money to foreign countries, and Israel is a strategic ally in that region, and I don't think we want to lose allies in that region. I mean, you look at Saudi Arabia. I mean, their human rights violations are crazy, but hey, they're our allies, But I just think that like that region is just like something that like our I don't know, the war hawks of our country, the what do you call it, the defense contractors and all the people who make all the, fancy, war equipment like missiles and stuff. They don't want us to get out of that region anytime soon. I think,
right.
Aren't they getting ready to send like troops over there or something? I don't know. Like, I feel like it's just too crazy. And I know that like there's got to be money going over there, but it's not being used for what most people think it should be used for. I think, all that money going to Israel, you would think it'd be going, improve their, schools or hospitals, or maybe something in relation to their airports. So, if they're our allies, maybe we need to land planes over there or something. I don't know. But
like hospitals, right? Like some, to help the injured, like something beneficial, right? But yeah, I highly doubt it's going towards any of that.
I guess it just seems like they're trying to expand and maybe just turn that whole place into
and
a parking lot.
Get us involved in any way. Like now, whenever you're looking up news articles for like this show, I have to look up news articles to talk about. I see things that say like Western countries are backing this war. So it'll say like United States backed war, and it's like, oh wow, that's terrible. That doesn't look good. It's thrust upon me without my permission that this is being backed by my country, supposedly.
Yeah, I don't really want my tax dollars going towards the slaughter of innocent people. I think that half their population, isn't it, like under the age of 24 or something? So like most of these families, like they can't. There's there's like a lot of people who just don't want anything to do with religion or politics, and they're just caught up in that mix, and it's just horrible. I mean, where are they going to go? I don't even know if they have passports or anything. It's just it's just a horrible situation.
The people in
Israel? No, in Gaza, and just I just think that I don't know. Like I just think that like even in Israel, I suppose there's people who don't want the war. I mean, it seems more like Netanyahu is like he's kind of like their version of Trump, right? I mean, he's a little bit more far to the right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But hey, thank you for taking my call. Hopefully someday, maybe 20, 30 years from now, our generation will be more peaceful than the previous ones or something. But hey, thank you.
Let's hope we learn the lessons of war before it's too late.
Thank you so much for the optimistic message there and your opinions.
I like what he said about we don't know what's going on over there, because that is such a good point. It seems like people just, make all these opinions based on like what other people are saying or what they're hearing on the news or what they're reading in articles. But really, there's no way to completely understand and know what is happening in the Gaza Strip, in Israel and Palestine, unless you're physically there seeing it with your own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And even then,
it's like,
how do we find out who the good guys are, even if we are on the ground?
And that's the thing too. It's just like there's really no way to know. So it's like it's insane that like there are so many strong opinions coming from the United States, and it's like, do you guys even know what's happening?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, just earlier in this show, you pointed out how the news had some terribly misleading, if not an actual lie in it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Lies about fentanyl.
Yeah, about fentanyl.
Yeah. That was from the New Hampshire Department of Justice. That wasn't even like a news.
You mean the
media
government
source.
lies? The Department of Justice lies?
Yeah, the Department of Justice.
Wow.
They're like, yeah, we have to give this guy life in prison because he just single-handedly murdered 250,000 people. It's like, really? Really? He thought about it. He had the intent. It's like, give me a break. No, he didn't.
Well, I pulled up this article from ajc.org, which is, where did it go? It's American Jewish Committee. And they are going to explain to us why the Israelis consider from the river to the sea a hate speech phrase. So let's get into it. It says, why it's anti-Semitic. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is a common call to arms for pro-Palestinian activists, especially student activists on college campuses. It calls for the establishment of a state of Palestine from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, erasing the state of Israel and its people. And if this had happened before, 1949, and there were people who were Israeli saying the term from the river to the sea, Israel will be free. You could say the same exact thing, and that's what they actually did. They took up arms, took this land, and settled in this place where people already had been.
But you have to remember, this was supported by the world at large because the Jewish people had just undergone a horrible incident known as the Holocaust that people are denying today. So it's just interesting that a plot of land, that people just keep fighting over a plot of land in the name of their God.
And I think it's annoying that people act like this was the only solution. Like, oh, this is just the way it had to be, Bonnie. Do you want all Jews to die? No, I just think there shouldn't be laws controlling who gets to travel to where. Like during World War II, how there was something called the journey of the voyage of the damned,
or the ship of the damned, I think it was.
There was a shipload of Jews who were trying to escape Europe, probably Germany. I'm not exactly sure which country.
I think it's Germany or Poland.
Yeah,
those were the main.
It was before things got really, really bad, but the United States, it was still bad for them. They're getting out of there, and the United States said, no, turn around.
Turn around, go back to wherever you came from. We can't have you here.
We can't have this
obviously
just one
they were
shipload.
killed.
Yep. Most countries in the world were doing that. They're like, well, I don't want to take them. Well, it shouldn't be up to you. It should be up to, do they have the ability to get in a ship and go to this land? And when they get there, do they have the ability to get a job, sustain themselves, build a house? That should be
So
all
awful.
there is to it.
Yeah. Imagine that. No, you have to stay in this place where people hate you. And not only just the government is trying to genocide your people, but Poland, the Polish people, like the average Polish person, was incredibly racist to the Jewish people, right?
Yep.
They were making their lives living hells. So it just is amazing. Like, people should be able to cross borders and go places and establish a life wherever they wish. Like, it's straight. And if they're like genuinely not welcome, the people there, I guess, will tell them, right? But to just like, as a governing body, be like, no, you have to go back to where you're going to be murdered and gas chambered and tortured.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then for the U.S. to be like, no, we're the good guys. We're going to come fight with you in the war and save you.
After
it's
that,
like,
right.
yeah, give me a break.
People are just absolutely cruel to each other.
It's really sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, going back to this, from the river to the sea, it says it is also a rallying cry for terrorist groups and their sympathizers from the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, PFLP, to Hamas, which called for Israel's destruction in its original governing charter in 1988 and was responsible for the October 7th, 2023 terror attack on Israeli civilians, murdering over 1,000 people in the single deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust. So the thing about it is, these terrorist groups have used this term, so now they're trying to make it sound like this, bringing it back to what we're actually talking about, this representative from Michigan saying that term. It's like you're saying that you know her thoughts and you know that she's meaning that people should die. That's not inherent in the term. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free is just saying what you want to happen. And that doesn't mean that she doesn't intend or hope that peaceful means can achieve that one day, like we were just saying with John. So let's get back into the article about her. Her name is Rashida Tlaib. And it says, so I think we already read that. It says, ultimately, more than 20 of them, meaning Democrats, joined Republicans on Tuesday night to censure Rashida Tlaib after an effort to shelve the measure failed earlier in the day. The latest censure push resulted in a dramatic vote on the House floor amid political tensions over the ongoing deadly Israel-Hamas war. While the majority of both parties have historically stood firmly on the side of Israel, divisions have emerged in the Democratic Party about the American response. Rep. Brad Schneider, Democrat from Illinois, the lone Democrat to vote with Republicans on Tuesday to advance the censure resolution, said he believed it was important to debate the slogan "From the River to the Sea." Quote, "It is nothing else but the call for the destruction of Israel and murder of Jews," the Jewish Democrat said. "I will always defend the right to free speech. Tlaib has the right to say whatever she wants, but you're also voting to censor her."
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Idiot. He added, "But it cannot go unanswered." While the censure, all you have to do is answer. All you do is use your words to respond to her. If she was saying even we need to kill Jews, all you need to do is use your words to respond
to that, right? Yeah, they're trying to.
You can say, "Hey,
silence her.
we don't advocate for the killing of people here."
Yep. It says, while the censure of a lawmaker carries no practical effect, it amounts to severe reproach from colleagues, as lawmakers who are censured are usually asked to stand in the well of the House as the censure resolution against them is read aloud. But the resolution against Tlaib did not call for the public admonishment. I guess that could be a component of this, but it wasn't in this instance.
Yeah.
With the vote, Tlaib will become the second Muslim American woman in Congress to be formally admonished this year for her criticism of Israel. Wow.
Wow, that's crazy.
Says Rep. Ilhan Omar, a Democrat from Minnesota, was removed in February from the House Foreign Affairs Committee for similar comments she made about Israel.
Wow.
I didn't hear about that.
I did not either.
Some on the left have criticized President Joe Biden's stance and urged him to put conditions on U.S. support for Israel, as its aggressive military campaign drives the Palestinian death toll higher. Like, if you think about it, already more innocent people have died in Palestine than died in Israel on October 7th. So it's like, when do you stop?
Yeah.
Are you just going to keep killing Palestinians that are innocent forever just to make up for the 1,000 or so that died in Israel?
We stop when our Messiah comes back.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that, yeah.
It sure feels like that.
I don't think they believe that the Messiah's
it's
been
awful.
there.
No, they don't believe that he came the first time like Christians do, but they believe there will be a messianic appearance by someone who's going to wipe out their enemies off the face of the earth.
Yep. And that's pretty scary.
It is.
It says, some on the left have criticized... Oh, sorry, I already read that. While the vote against Tlaib will take place against the extraordinary backdrop of the war, the push to censure her is part of a growing pattern in the House. Censure has long been viewed as a punishment of last resort, just one step below expulsion, and to be triggered only for the most egregious wrongdoing. That's crazy. This isn't the most egregious wrongdoing.
No. And that's the thing. It's like there are literally people being murdered right now, and she's not allowed to speak out against that.
Right. It's crazy.
And to say, like, what she said is, like, rallying for war and violence. I mean...
Joe Biden's giving money to war and violence.
Like, there already is war and violence.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, no, what she's doing is supporting the other side, and that's not allowed.
Yep.
It's like, you have to agree with us. You know, we're on the side of Israel. Doesn't matter how many people are being murdered. You can't have a different opinion, or else you're literally anti-Semitic. Like, this is what it comes down to. You know what I mean?
It's crazy. And that's why I thought this was a really interesting, important thing to talk about. Usually I don't care what Congress does at all. Like, unless they're putting some kind of law to, like, outlaw kratom. I usually don't care what they're doing. But they haven't done that, thank God. I'm just making a point that I don't usually pay attention to what they're doing, but this says a lot, for the state of the world and the people living in it. This woman is doing something that she absolutely has the right to do, and she's getting in trouble for it. Yeah, they're not really doing anything, like, physically harming her, but I think that it is kind of a canary in the coal mine for freedom of speech, which I really care about, obviously, or I wouldn't be doing this show.
I think freedom of speech is really important, especially, you know, our show is very unique because we don't share the typical talking points of conservative talk radio, where they're talking about how bad Joe Biden is and how good the Republicans are,
Brandon.
or whatever. We tend to fall on the side of, you know, government is generally bad. We like free speech. We like freedom.
Yep. We let anyone call in except Skeeter from California.
Yep.
And say what they want to say. I mean, that's only because every time he's called in, he's just been purposely annoying. So that's why I ignore him.
That's how you know you really suck, when you're like the one person that's blacklisted from this show.
Yeah, from Free Talk Live.
Yeah, it's
I'll
like
even
we
answer
literally
David
like
again.
Yeah, like we let like literally everybody call in.
Yeah, David annoys me, but I'll still answer him next time he calls. It says censure had long been viewed. Oh, sorry, I already read that. Many Democrats and some Republicans who opposed censuring Tlaib cited free speech and warned of the precedent it would set. Wow, kind of exactly what I just said. Quote, this resolution not only degrades our Constitution, but it cheapens the meaning of discipline in this body for people who actually commit wrongful actions like bribery, fraud, violent assault, and so on, unquote, said Rep. Jamie Raskin, Democrat from Maryland.
Now, those are things that someone should be censured for, but, you know, free speech is not one of them.
He defended Tlaib against the resolution on the floor late Tuesday. A second resolution by Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican from Georgia, to censure Tlaib had also been scheduled for a procedural vote late Tuesday night, but that measure was put on hold after the censure resolution from McCormick advanced to a final vote. Tlaib is now the 26th person to ever be censured by the chamber, and the second just this year. It's weird. They're both Muslims.
That is a little strange.
In June, Republicans voted to censure Democrat Adam Schiff of California for comments he had made years ago about investigations into the then President Donald Trump's ties to Russia. When the House was under Democratic control, Republican Rep. Paul Gosar of Arizona was censured in 2001 for tweeting an animated video that depicted him striking Democratic Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York with a sword. Oh my God.
These people are so weird.
They are, aren't they?
Like
a meme, an AI meme or something. It says, and Democratic Rep. Charlie Rangel of New York was censured in 2010 for over serious financial and campaign misconduct. See, it sounds like something maybe they should be using this censure power for, but yeah, I just thought it was pretty crazy and messed up, and I stand behind that lady being able to say whatever she wants. I mean, her grandma, I think someone said it was her grandma.
I said that, but I was just maybe the article said that, but I just said that just as because she's from Palestine somehow, has some sort of heritage in Palestine. It said she had
family in Palestine. It did, but it didn't say who.
Probably a grandmother or aunt, or you know what I mean. Like she's
like they're at risk of dying.
You know, it's not like me being like I'm French. I'm from France. It's like, no, my great grandmother was born in France. You know, it's like that's pretty far removed. You know, I don't know anyone in France. It sounds like she like legit has family in Palestine.
Yep, exactly.
So one would assume, not always, but one would assume that she would probably be on their side.
And be concerned about their freedom just as much as anyone else's, I imagine.
And
yeah,
be concerned that they
and she didn't say anything like negative about Israel, really. Like she wasn't like, we need to kill the Israelis and we need to take up arms. It didn't sound like that to me. You know what I mean? Like
they're just reading
sounded
too much
like
into that little
that's
slogan.
the thing. Like she's like promoting peace and freedom. This is me. What I'm reading into it. Whatever. Freedom, promoting freedom at the very least of the Palestinian people.
Well, at least the word "free" was actually in the quote. There isn't a word like bomb or destroy.
No, it wasn't
or
like
kill.
yeah. So
moving on, Riley brought in an interesting story from Reason.com that is kind of related. And so I definitely wanted to talk about this one next after that one that we just talked about. It says, yes, anti-Israel protests are free speech. Peaceful pro-Palestine protests are protected by the First Amendment. Well, that was a lot of alliteration.
Yeah.
Even if protesters often use offensive or inflammatory rhetoric. It says last Friday, and it shows this picture. It looks like it's in front of some kind of a government building. I'm not sure where. And it says, it's a group of people on some steps in front of this government building. They have flags up. I guess it's the flag of Palestine. I don't really know. And they're holding signs, and the signs say, "Stop the genocide in Gaza, apartheid, and Harvard out of occupied Palestine, and divest." So, it says last Friday, a group of college students penned a guest essay in the New York Times arguing that the wave of anti-Israel, pro-Palestine activity on many college campuses isn't a legitimate free... it says... There's a typo here. It says, isn't a new legitimate free expression. And that universities have a moral responsibility to combat it. We'll get into what exactly they said, but right off the bat, I'll have to say that they're wrong. That universities don't have a moral responsibility to be on one or the other side of government's wars.
I agree.
And that it's definitely free speech to say whatever your opinion is. 603-283-6160. Get your calls in. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. The UN says 92 of its relief workers for Palestinian refugees have been killed in Gaza since the start of recent hostilities between Hamas and Israel. This is the highest number of UN aid workers killed in a conflict in the history of the United Nations. Will Denslow reports.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the number of UN workers killed in Gaza over the past month is more than any comparable period in the organisation's history. UNRWA says at least 66 internally displaced people have been killed while sheltering at their facilities in Gaza since the war began on October 7th. On that day, Hamas conducted an assault on Israel, killing roughly 1,400 people and took more than 240 hostages. The Ministry of Health in Gaza says more than 10,000 people have died since then, as Israel has moved to destroy Hamas in the Palestinian enclave. Guterres says the huge loss of civilian life in the Gaza Strip shows that something is clearly wrong with Israel's military operations. William Denslow, New York.
The Commissioner of London's police force is resisting pressure to ban a pro-Palestine march on Remembrance Weekend, when the UK traditionally remembers soldiers who died in World War I. Stuart Smith reports.
The Metropolitan Police has asked the organisers to urgently reconsider the timing of the march, but has stopped short of banning it. It claims officers can safeguard remembrance events and keep the public safe, in part by forcing the march to take place away from the most sensitive areas of London. The Prime Minister says he will hold the Commissioner accountable for that. Rishi Sunak says his personal view is that the marches are disrespectful, and he'll meet the head of the police force to discuss what measures they're taking. The pro-Palestine protests have been held each Saturday for the past few weeks in response to Israel's fight against Hamas in Gaza after Hamas killed hundreds of civilians in Israel.
Lawmakers in the United States have subpoenaed Joe Biden's son and brother as part of their impeachment inquiry into the president and his family. Congress's House Oversight Committee is seeking depositions from Hunter and James Biden, as well as business associate Rob Walker. From Washington, Benji Hire reports.
It's a remarkable step, but one that Republican Party politicians have been threatening as they intensify their investigation. They allege that the Bidens engaged in corruption, influence peddling, bribery, that they benefited financially from Joe's position then as vice president. The White House vigorously denies any wrongdoing and says that Joe Biden had no involvement in his son Hunter's business dealings, arguing this impeachment effort is a political move. There is no clear evidence, the administration insists, to support claims of high crimes and misdemeanors. That'll do little, though, to halt these attempts to bring down the president as the country enters election year. Benji Hart.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live, welcome back. 603-283-6160 is the phone number you can call in to get your thoughts and opinions on the air. And we won't censure you, and we won't tell you that you're a bad person. Well, unless your thoughts or opinion are violent.
Yeah, unless you're a bad person.
Right. We won't tell you what you can't say it, though. 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Riley.
And Nikki.
And since it's Free Talk Live, we're going to go straight to your phone calls and thoughts. We have Sarah in New Mexico. Sarah, what's on your mind?
Oh yes. So the election ended, and then we're going to have a one runoff. We had 4 city councilors, but one of the people had 3 people running. So the top person, Nicole Rogers, got like 44%. And then the second runner-up is Jeff Holland. He got, I think, 34. So they're going to have the runoff. But I called the campaign office. I'm going to help volunteer and, help her win. That's what I'm trying to do.
Is it like Democrat versus Democrat, or is it a Republican in there?
Okay, it's supposed to be so-called, supposedly it's supposed to be nonpartisan, but everybody knows what side they're on. Like, obviously, Nicole Rogers is Democrat, and it seems like Jeff Owen, he got busted for, taking money from the business PAC. What do you call those? Like the businesses give them money. No, it's like a business PAC. I think that he takes money from businesses to run his campaign or something, and they were on the news about it.
It's illegal.
So, you know what? That's why I'm trying to, or I don't know if it's legal. Is it like a disclosure? You have to disclose. You don't take like only $3,000 per business.
It could be like he's supposed to disclose it if he took a certain amount and he didn't do that. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what. And then they announced it on election day at 9:30 in the morning, and it didn't. See that if people knew about it like a week before, he would not have even got that much 34 points percentage. But all these people, they tell you all these things about these people when it's too late, like KKOB. So hopefully this will reflect on the runoff that we're going to have next month. But with a difference like that, she won by like 10 points. So that means that she's going to make it for sure if there's just 2 of them. And it sounds like they wanted me to canvass. So we need volunteers for canvassing. And I'm just like,
Yeah, have you ever done that? It's hard work.
You have canvassed?
Yeah, in New Hampshire and Maine.
You know something? I think I have canvassed, but I'm not really for it because I don't like to be pushing a candidate. I've always had this.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. I agree that it should be illegal. It should be illegal to do, but it's so against my nature to walk up to people's houses and tell them about a candidate. I only did it to come up here and visit New Hampshire. It was horrible.
That was the whole reason is to go on vacation. They kind of located you up there to.
It was not a vacation.
That was the reason
well,
for
you were
vacation.
working, right?
Yeah, I was working.
Yeah.
I was getting $10 an hour. I took a pay cut, and on the weekend or the days that I wasn't on / the evening after I had worked, I was doing Uber Eats because they were not paying me a lot.
Yeah, no, that's not a lot.
I don't blame you for doing Uber Eats if they're not paying you a lot.
Yeah, and people tip so well up here. I absolutely love doing Uber Eats up here.
You want to make some real money? Do Uber Eats. Deliver pizza. Go work at Domino's.
Yeah.
Seriously. But it wasn't a vacation, but Sarah, I used it just to get up here and meet Ian and
But Sarah, I'm actually surprised to hear that you have that opinion that you don't agree with like pushing a particular candidate.
Yeah.
Just because you typically have like pretty strong beliefs.
I figured that's what she's calling in about.
Yeah, like you're usually calling in to like advocate or like support a certain candidate or a certain thing. So can you just speak to like more about that? Why you don't really think that's good?
Well, you know what? Here in Albuquerque, it's like for every 1 Republican, there's about like 7 Democrats. So it's technically not necessary. The strategy for me is to just have them go out and vote, showing them where to go, what the hours are, and what the rules of the votings are. That's more important. I just focused on that.
Okay.
Because them voting for a Democrat is just like automatic.
That's true.
Yeah.
Sarah, I was thinking that. I was like, I wonder if Sarah really likes this lady or if it's just she doesn't know anything about her, but she knows she's a Democrat, so she's going to vote for her. Right? That's usually how you roll.
Well, the whole thing is that you don't have to know nothing about her. It's just the fact that they're a Democrat. They're going to help. again, the poor people, the low-income housing, free bus rides. That's what they have to know about. If somebody they're a Democrat, and that's good enough. They're gonna.
Is it good enough though? I mean, do you really Can you make that assumption that just because someone's registered as a Democrat that they're gonna support all of those things?
Well, look at in Albuquerque, New Mexico. You're not dealing with a very high level of very sophisticated, intelligent people or anything like that. So they're very simple. All you have to do is say Democrat, and that guarantees food stamps, EBT, Medicaid, low-income housing, Section 8 housing. That's it. That's all that's all they want to know.
Got not actually mad at me, but kind of reprimanded me, tried to censure me for saying that people in New Mexico are dumb, but I took it back ultimately.
Yeah, but I mean, Sarah lives there, and she has firsthand experience, so...
Right.
I don't know what's going on over there, but it seems like, she's doing the field research right now.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm going to take her word for it.
Well, thank you for the call, Sarah. Anything else you wanted to add about that?
Well, I just want to say, you know what? I'm endorsing Nicole Rogers. If anybody's listening here in Albuquerque area, let's vote for her. That's all.
All right. Well, thanks, Sarah. I support Sarah's right to say it. I don't really care.
I don't know who Nicole Rogers
I don't
is.
either.
She's probably an idiot, but
she's probably a statist and wants to steal money. So
yeah, she's a politician. Gross.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But Sarah has the right on public radio to advocate for someone she likes.
That's pretty funny. I love it when she's just because she is very unfiltered. It seems like Sarah kind of will tell it like it is from her perspective.
I think that's what I appreciate about Sarah, even though I would absolutely disagree with her on a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'm glad she's speaking her opinion on the airwaves like everyone else does.
Because I feel like a lot of people, they're like, oh, no, you can't say that they're dumb or, especially if you're trying to win these people over. But she's just yeah, I mean, most of these people are really dumb, and you just have to be really simple. And
if you push the average Democrat and you're seriously, get down to it. Do you think that we should be like a communist nation? Should we be killing people if they make too much money, or at least taking their money and imprisoning them? Sarah will tell you yes. She told me that she thinks that people who make as much money as Donald Trump should be put into jail and their money should be passed out to everyone else.
I don't think the average Democrat believes that, though.
Well, it's just if you put... exactly, they don't think they believe that, but if they put all the things that they're told that they believe in into action over the years, that's where we're gonna end up.
Maybe it's just crazy to be oh, well, every single Democrat is gonna believe in X, Y, and Z across the board, because that's totally not true.
So she thinks.
And I've never really heard any phrase to describe Democrats like this, but that phrase or the acronym or whatever, Rhino, Republican in name only.
Yep.
I know the governor of Massachusetts, they always used to call Charlie Baker, oh, he's a rhino, because he was a Republican, but he was too left for a lot of the actual Republicans in the state. So I'm sure there are plenty of
I feel like it is less common because
maybe it's less common, but I know of libertarians who have run as Democrats.
Right.
So what if you're just blindly voting for this person because they have a D next to their name, and next thing they're trying to get rid of
the cops
all of these things that you believe in. It's oh, well, just because someone is a Democrat or a Republican
doesn't mean doing no research.
Yeah, doesn't mean that they believe in Democrat or Republican things.
Right. And obviously Aria proved that. Aria, our co-host who's in jail right now, she ran as a Republican for sheriff here in Keene, and they voted her in.
Yeah, she won the primary.
And
then they were so outraged. She tricked us.
Yeah.
No, she didn't.
No,
she registered as a Republican, fair and square.
She's very clearly a trans woman. She was not hiding that. She's been one for 10 years. She's very openly a Satanist. All of her beliefs and anti-state, right? So all of her beliefs, she has blogs, she has a YouTube channel, she does a radio show, she couldn't be more loud and out there about her opinions. And they're oh, she tricked us. No, you didn't even bother to Google her. If you Googled her and pulled up her website, you would know exactly what she believes. But these people, they're just are good enough.
I really
You know
hope
what
that
I mean?
backfires on Sarah just like that one day. Like somebody in New Mexico does that exact same thing. It'd be so funny. Well, moving on to your phone calls and thoughts, or more of them. We have Jet. Where are you at tonight, Jet? Western.
I'm in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Oh,
it's
nice.
It's another constitutional carry state.
Interesting. I've never been to Idaho.
The northern Idaho. Just call it up sometime. Take a look at the pictures. It's
I've
very
heard
much,
good things.
very, very much like New Hampshire.
Really?
With big lakes and mountains, and yeah, it's great.
That does sound great.
But I wanted to come complain about people with titles.
Yes.
Because I get this, I don't know, this cringe or whatever it is whenever I hear the word officials or authorities or the honorable or even the word government. Just makes me want to go, I don't know, hit something or something. But anyway, because
Cringe is a
I
good
believe,
word for it. I know what you mean. But we do.
I believe that no one human can be above another, except in a voluntary sense. Let's say you're in a private business, you hire on to somebody. You have voluntarily and willingly subordinated yourself to that structure. Or let's say a voluntary militia, something like that. But any other organization that just kind of makes itself up and says, you will obey me, is an issue for me. Because I believe that there is no authority except the author and creator of the universe. I also believe that there is no such thing as government except on the shoulders of the one who judges all of mankind to be saved or to be condemned. So any other perspective, any other perception is being promoted by these people, these violent gangs of people who force the concept upon you that says that they are your better, that they are your magistrate, and you must do what they say. So, yeah, people with titles have no more right, in my mind, than anybody else. And you're being kind of quiet about that.
No, we're just listening because we actually agree with that. It's something that we try and remember, but we get it's challenging sometimes,
Yeah, you didn't say anything wrong, so we didn't have to interrupt you or anything like that.
I do have a question for you though.
This time, yeah.
So, Jet, right now Ian is in jail, and he is reading this book called The God of War. It's by a Christian for Christians, and he's trying to convince Christians to be more anti-war. Well, I just want to know, what is your stance, since you've shared with us before that you're a Christian? What's your stance on this war with Israel?
Well, my understanding is the God I serve is a God of love and peace. And his whole desire, obviously, with statements like, love one another and love your neighbor as yourself and that kind of thing. The Bible also talks about how foreigners in the land should be treated as brothers, referencing the fact that at one point the Israelites had to go into Egypt to kind of save themselves.
Right.
So my position is that war is stupid. It really is. It's very unintelligent. Because think of all the technology that goes into some of these huge war machines, like for Russia and China and the U.S. and all these other. Imagine if these people collaborated and put all their knowledge together, what kind of a life and what kind of an earth we could be living in.
Like free energy stuff? Yeah, that's so true.
I mean, yeah, because, but they spend all of their time devising ways to destroy and kill. And that, for me, I call myself a dedicated disciple of Christ because I believe in the concepts of love and peace. I believe that there is no other way to live amongst other people except with caring and peace and love for them. Does that answer your question, at least?
Yeah, it does a lot, and I thank you for that. I really wonder how people can love Jesus and read the things he said and then still be for killing people. It's absolutely crazy. Some of the things Ian has read to me from that God of War book, it was like, there's lots of quotes of people from the past who were Christians, and they're saying like, oh, I would give all of my sons for the, this war that my country's in, just stuff like that. Like Americans.
It's awful.
Speaking of titles, anybody can call themselves anything.
Mhm.
You can call yourself a Christian. Most people call themselves Christian because they were born in America, or their parents claim to be Christian, or they went to church a couple times. That's their grounds, their basis for calling themselves a Christian. A true Christian is one who will stand for the right of others, who will stand in defense of someone harming someone else. That's you'll not find Jesus in any war stance at all, except against the devil. That's it. And of course, the enemy is among us as far as influencing other people. I understand that, and I tell people that yes, in Ephesians we're told that our fighting is not against flesh and blood, but the fact is that the flesh and blood is the one that carries out, the workings of the enemy of God. So, yes, on the one hand, our war is against the enemy of God, the devil, but it's accomplished through other human beings. So, and you have to look at the history of God's treating human beings, where at one point they became so destructive to themselves and other people that he just felt he had to take them out. So that's God's way of taking care of the evil among us, is to eliminate the host. And there's no problem or no scripture that specifically addresses things like self-defense, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But there are scripture talking about how we should be protective of one another, hold each other accountable, protect your family, the husband being the protector of the family, that kind of thing. So like I said, people can call themselves anything they want, but if you call yourself a golfer and because you have golf clubs in the closet, but you never go out on the golf course, you're not a golfer or a skier or whatever. If you have a Bible sitting on the shelf and you're not in it understanding what God wants you to do with your life and your life with respect to others, you're not a Christian. You're not a Christ follower. You're not a follower of the way. And that's how I feel about that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Jet.
Thanks for your perspective, Jet.
Yep, it's definitely refreshing.
Yeah, it sounds pretty based.
I mean, I know a lot of Christians just believe they should. Well, God told the Israelites that's their land, so they should be able to kill anyone. And it seems to me like Jet was just saying that you should only use violence for self-defense. And then maybe he did bring up that God killed people in the Old Testament. And if that's what you believe, that's what you believe. But I don't know. I like the New Testament a lot more than the Old Testament.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Red flag.
We have an unscreened caller. Unscreened caller, what's on your mind? What's your name?
Hello?
Yep, I hear you.
Yeah, it's about on October 3rd, 2023, I should say, Bonnie could only watch helplessly while a bunch of gun-toting goons in bulletproof vests were kidnapping her husband.
Oh, it's the second,
and
just so you know. But go ahead. Go on.
One of the kidnappers walked up to Bonnie and handed her something, and I suspect it was because Bonnie was under so much stress at the moment, or by force of habit, she said thank you.
Oh, it wasn't. It wasn't. Just so you know, it wasn't a goon. It was Ian's lawyer. He handed me Ian's ring.
Oh, it was the lawyer that handed that to you?
Yeah, there was a bunch of cops around, but Ian's lawyer came up in the middle of it and handed me Ian's ring. And he said that was one of the most sad things he's ever had to do, which I was like, wow.
Yeah, it looked to me from my angle that like it was one of the goons. Those are the most dangerous, the most crazy, I should say, of law enforcement goons are the ones in the courthouses. Because, right. I mean, not just looking at that case where they applied a statute about having to have a license to transmit funds, and they they stretched it all of a sudden with no advance warning retroactively to Bitcoin as if it was funds, and then they sentenced Ian, but not just as, no matter how badly they misinterpret the law, no matter how bad the evidence is, no matter how well the defense disproves the allegations, if the judge says to take somebody to jail, they will do so. And it's like, and they honestly think that it's not their fault that the person is that they are taking the person to jail.
Right.
You know, let's take it up with the judge, but all the judge is doing is babbling and scribbling.
I will say that I definitely do accidentally behave very polite to cops most of the time. Whenever I have, it's not a good idea to just scream at a cop whenever you see him, so I wouldn't do that. But usually, like, a cop holds a door for me and like, thank you. And
you
I'm
know
like,
what?
Dang it.
I do that, but like
Force of
even
habit.
if I'm being like harassed by them, like if I'm being pulled over or something, but I feel like as a default, I'm kind of like polite to everybody
That's
I
how I
interact
am
with.
too.
Like
That's
you
what
have to be being like a real jerk for me to like start giving you lip. So I think in like circumstances like I gave like if I was getting pulled over or whatever. I'm not gonna like just start like I have before where I kind of started like popping off at the cop or whatever and was like being incredibly rude to him because for very good reason. I mean, like I was justified in what I was saying and my actions because this guy is literally harassing me when I did nothing wrong. But it doesn't really get you very far.
It doesn't help you, right?
It doesn't help your cause. So like I said, as a default, I'm usually like pretty polite to most people, unless I already don't like them. So I don't know why. I kind of forget why I was even saying that. But anyways.
What now? One of the things that people need to remember. See, it has happened when I just act businesslike when the cops are dealing with me, like at the scene of a traffic accident where I got hit by somebody, or just write it all up. Okay, they're just businesslike. But on election day, a few years back, a municipal election, there was a question in the ballot on ratifying the union contract with the police, and the police union contract. And at one of the campaign tables, there was a staffer there, probably an off-duty cop, and I was talking to the people at the next table over, and that staffer said, and don't forget to vote yes on the police union contract. And I said, no, because in a police state, the police are the enemy. And see, you can say that when that's pretty much what it is. They don't understand the police forces of a hostile domestic government are the enemy just as much as the armed forces of a hostile foreign government are. And even so, sometimes people have to deal with the armed forces of a hostile foreign government, like if they get captured and they have to be fed by the armed forces of a hostile foreign government.
Oh, sorry. Well, thank you, Tom, for the call. 603-283-6160. More coming up. Don't go anywhere. It's Free Talk Live.
Americans everywhere are enjoying their Sundays after successfully completing Mother's Day in less than 20 minutes this morning. Dads were able to wrap up breakfast in bed by 9:18 a.m., giving them plenty of time to mill about the garage for the rest of the afternoon. While children who spent a minute and a half this morning hugging their mothers are currently out playing street hockey. And after completely fulfilling their Mother's Day obligations with a store-bought card, teens are now free to leave and spend the day with their friends. The moms, who were quickly and efficiently lavished with cards, flowers, assurances of love, and 7 full minutes of family togetherness, praised the competency with which the holiday was carried out.
Oh, it was great. Charles and the kids made me feel completely appreciated, but they ended the holiday before I even got out of bed. Guess I'll go water the plants now.
But before the day-long celebration concluded early this morning, moms had their own job to do, making a brief, obligatory phone call to their own mothers.
This is the Onion News Network.
There are basically 2 types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. The UN says 92 of its relief workers for Palestinian refugees have been killed in Gaza since the start of recent hostilities between Hamas and Israel. This is the highest number of UN aid workers killed in a conflict in the history of the United Nations. Will Denslow reports.
United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says the number of UN workers killed in Gaza over the past month is more than any comparable period in the organisation's history. UNRWA says at least 66 internally displaced people have been killed while sheltering at their facilities in Gaza since the war began on October 7th. On that day, Hamas conducted an assault on Israel, killing roughly 1,400 people and took more than 240 hostages. The Ministry of Health in Gaza says more than 10,000 people have died since then, as Israel has moved to destroy Hamas in the Palestinian enclave. Guterres says the huge loss of civilian life in the Gaza Strip shows that something is clearly wrong with Israel's military operations. William Denslow, New York.
The Commissioner of London's police force is resisting pressure to ban a pro-Palestine march on Remembrance Weekend, when the UK traditionally remembers soldiers who died in World War I. Stuart Smith reports.
The Metropolitan Police has asked the organisers to urgently reconsider the timing of the march, but has stopped short of banning it. It claims officers can safeguard remembrance events and keep the public safe, in part by forcing the march to take place away from the most sensitive areas of London. The Prime Minister says he will hold the Commissioner accountable for that. Rishi Sunak says his personal view is that the marches are disrespectful, and he'll meet the head of the police force to discuss what measures they're taking. The pro-Palestine protests have been held each Saturday for the past few weeks in response to Israel's fight against Hamas in Gaza after Hamas killed hundreds of civilians in Israel. Stuart Smith, London.
Lawmakers in the United States have subpoenaed Joe Biden's son and brother as part of their impeachment inquiry into the president and his family. Congress's House Oversight Committee is seeking depositions from Hunter and James Biden, as well as business associate Rob Walker. From Washington, Benji Hire reports.
It's a remarkable step, but one that Republican Party politicians have been threatening as they intensify their investigation. They allege that the Bidens engaged in corruption, influence peddling, bribery, that they benefited financially from Joe's position then as vice president. The White House vigorously denies any wrongdoing and says that Joe Biden, now president of course, had no involvement in his son Hunter's business dealings. Benji Hire, Washington.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, with more today on the crisis over Gaza. On Monday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel now plans to play an overall security role in Gaza indefinitely. He provided no details, but the suggestion indicates he has no plans, at least on security, to partner with President Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority. He and his Fatah group control the West Bank, govern it in a far more liberal way than Hamas, and are interested in a two-state solution with Israel. But in Israel, Matt Fry of the UK's Channel 4 News says President Abbas is no longer considered a substantial player.
This man is 87 years old. He looks visibly very tired, and he's got no mandate. I mean, the last election in the West Bank was in 2006. They've been cancelled ever since, partly because the Israelis have made it impossible for them to hold meaningful elections, but also because they don't want to hold elections, because guess what? If there was an election in the West Bank today, it wouldn't be Fatah or the PLO that would win it. It would be probably Hamas. And so at the same time, here is Antony Blinken and Joe Biden saying, we are sticking to the two-state solution. No one believes in it anymore. The world has moved on, sadly. But it's still the only viable solution on the ground if there's to be peace.
And so, whenever the military standoff over Gaza ends, there is still no certainty about the future governance of the territory. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. The UN says 92 workers have been killed in Gaza in the recent Israel-Hamas conflict. The UN chief says there's clearly something wrong with Israel's military operations given the number of civilians killed. London's police commissioner says there's no security reason to ban a pro-Palestine march set for Remembrance Day weekend. And in the United States, the brother and son of President Biden, James and Hunter, are subpoenaed to give testimony to a House impeachment inquiry. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. And that's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone reporting.
Retail giant CVS is gearing up for floods of customers seeking the perfect meaningless piece of crap for their office gift swap. The company is making no secret that when it comes to wasting the obligatory $20 on a useless electronic dartboard or pretzel maker for someone you couldn't care less about, CVS is your best option.
Our incredible selection of worthless is just the thing that nobody wants. We guarantee you'll find nothing personal or unique in our store.
The company is offering massive discounts on otherwise unsellable items for holiday parties you don't even want to go to, like the $12 decorative lantern, which is expected to be a big hit with customers who grab the first thing they see when they walk in the store.
I really wanted to get something that said, I don't care about any of you people and I didn't put any effort into this.
CVS also has Hanukkah gifts for coworkers who you think might be Jewish, like candles and those little plastic net bags full of chocolate money.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to call to get in on the conversation with us or bring up whatever's on your mind. 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Riley.
And Nikki.
And I'm just going to go straight to your phone calls and thoughts. We have Tim in Florida. Tim, what's on your mind?
Oh, man, I didn't know I was next up. The last caller was comparing the police to, the armed forces of a hostile government. And the first thing that came to my mind was Netanyahu and the United States funding Hamas and arming Hamas. And now Netanyahu is declaring revenge as a virtue.
Who is that? Can you remind me who that is?
Netanyahu is the Prime Minister of Israel, kind of like the top dog over there.
So isn't it interesting? Like it sounds like, the United States government is funding Hamas and Israel both at the same time.
Correct.
Right, and I agree with Tom's interpretation of the cops in that way. I mean, the federal government is a foreign body to New Hampshire invading and, taking people's boyfriends away and things like that. So I don't really see what the difference is.
Yeah, so the parody is they're destroying lives, right? Like they destroyed your life and Ian's life together, and they destroyed Ian's life for however long they keep him in prison. At the same time, meanwhile, Israel, the state of Israel, this is not a comment on anyone who is Jewish by religion or considers themselves Jewish by genetics or whatever. I don't even know what it means. I don't care what it means. All I know is there's actually an Auschwitz survivor, and I'll have to call back with his name, but there's an Auschwitz survivor that recently made a comment and said that the state of Israel is behaving like 1930s Germany.
Wow.
That's interesting.
That's really interesting.
And And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop off because I've been experiencing a lot of emotions and I really can't process too much more.
Well, thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Tim, have a good night.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I know it is like a very, I don't know exactly what kind of emotions he's talking about, but it is like specific to the topic. I mean, it is it's a lot. It's
a lot
heavy
to carry.
stuff.
It's really heavy stuff. It's a lot of emotion to carry. It feels like our day and age right now is a very heavy, violent time. We're moving through a lot of emotion. A lot of transition is occurring, and it's just really difficult
More bad things
for people.
could happen. Bad things could start happening here in the United States.
Yep.
To more innocent people.
I tried looking up the Holocaust survivor that he's talking about, and I can't find it.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting if we could find that.
Yeah.
Maybe
he might remember the name and call in sometime. But one thing I did want to say is, luckily the government tried, but they have not destroyed Ian and I's lives. Like, they're actually, killing other people.
Yeah, I was thinking that was a little dramatic, but obviously, it has really impaired your life. I mean, you, uprooted, I think would be a good word.
Right.
Destroy is a little
I just want to point out that Ian is literally still in good spirits, laughing, being silly Ian and happy, and it's it's to the point where most people who are just in there for a year are in such way worse spirits than Ian.
I think that speaks a lot about Ian's character. He's still in good spirits. He's not feeling like the world's out to get him.
And it's truly what it means to be free in your own mind.
Yeah, and I do like to kind of spread that message of freedom starts from within. It starts in your mind.
Yeah.
If you're and I know it's hard because life is really heavy, depression, all those things are very legit, anxiety, stuff like that. But those are things that we have control over, and we can work through that stuff. And if you're as a human stuck in depression and anxiety and a lot of those things and being victimized, being victimized by your emotions and by your trauma and things that have happened to you, you're never going to be truly free. I think once we can heal ourselves from within and kind of start to work through a lot of that stuff, we can become truly free individuals no matter the circumstance, and we can help other people achieve that same thing.
Nikki, I agree with you, and doing the emotional work and the physical work to get through these emotions and work through them all is so difficult at times because from birth or whatever, we've been, I guess, programmed or domesticated, as Don Miguel Ruiz would put it in his book, The Four Agreements. I don't know if anyone...
Yeah, I love that book.
I've read that too.
So
listen to it.
We've been domesticated as humans to dream a certain dream of the planet, a dream of the world, and we've been domesticated to experience all this trauma, all this stuff, and we just continue to traumatize ourselves over and over again, and yet we still got to do the work.
Yeah.
This is what working with plant medicines is all about and should be all about, is working through the work. And it's challenging when you start waking up to all this stuff that, oh no, I've got all this stuff inside me that's really, really bogging me down. And I have to work through it, and it's really challenging sometimes.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I try not, I try to be very optimistic, and when I say things like that, oh no, you have the power to do all these things, right, and all this work. And I don't want to downplay what people are going through. With a lot of my patients, even as a nurse, I'm not a therapist, so we're not super deep diving it. But I will just talk with people, and a lot of the people I work with, the things that have happened to them are unimaginable to me.
Yeah.
And I'm I have not experienced, thankfully, I have not experienced that level of trauma in my life that even some people do as young children. And it's horrifying, and it's really sad. So I don't want to downplay some of the things. I'm not saying it's easy, but I just think I'm really proud of people who are actively taking the steps to become a better person and to work through their trauma, and to work on their emotional regulation skills, and because it is a lot of work and it's hard. But it is possible. And I think some people get really bogged down by it, and they're well, I'm just gonna become a drug addict or an alcoholic or a food addict or whatever. People are gonna bury their trauma with all of these distractions because they're so prevalent in our society.
Yeah, and it's easy to do. It's easy to bury the emotional pain with distractions.
There's so many options.
Being a workaholic or drugs or
even
whatever.
Netflix and scrolling on social media. You know what I mean? Like there are so many options to distract yourself
from your life, right?
Exactly, like to distract yourself and to confront some of those things, especially if it's like deep-seated childhood trauma or like really horrific things that have happened to people. To be able to confront that and work through that is huge. You know, so I just like to kind of like let people know, like it is possible. Like it won't always be easy, but like you can truly like be free within yourself, no matter what has happened to you in the past and no matter what is like happening to you currently. Like it is possible.
Yeah, and a lot of people will get really annoyed when you say that, but it's just because people really don't want their life problems to be their own fault, and that sounds like
or their responsibility to like work through, right?
Like things that happen to you aren't necessarily
like to
your
be
fault,
victims,
but not doing anything because to like get ahead in life because, well, this thing happened to me and that's why I ended up in this situation. Isn't that like really sad? And I should just focus on that forever?
Another good example, like in the like rhetoric of mental illness, like especially depression, like it's a chemical imbalance of the brain, right?
Yeah, that's not
so
true.
It kind of is like hyper medicalizing a lot of these mental illnesses, which are totally legit. I mean, like depression is totally real.
Absolutely.
But it's hyper medicalizing it. So it's like, no, this is something in your physiology. This is something in your anatomy. It's genetic, whatever. There's nothing you can do about it. So like, here's some pills. And I feel like that's part of the propaganda
and
of
training.
the pharmaceutical company and of the medical industrial complex. And a lot of doctors, like, they don't know any better, so I don't think they're trying to like murder people and sabotage people and like just be drug pushers. And a lot of people don't want to do the work, so it's easier just to take Lexapro or Zoloft or whatever than to really work through your stuff.
It's so deep.
You know what I mean?
We ingrained into pharmaceutical companies' culture to lie to people that they have no control over their
they're powerless.
Health. There are even commercials. I was listening to Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza yesterday, and he was describing how commercials will put spells over you to tell you that your body and health have to be a certain way. And he was telling this one that was a commercial for some kind of medicine for shingles, and it literally says there were a couple different variations of it that he described, but it literally tells you, like, as you get older, your immune system is going to weaken and the virus is already inside you, that you are extremely susceptible.
Yeah,
and
like
it's
what crazy programming. And it's like, that's not necessarily true. Like, you can totally strengthen your immune system as you get older through like diet and exercise and different lifestyle changes. I mean, it's just like, this like propaganda that we're weak and that we don't have the power to heal ourselves. And as you get older, you're just going to get like old and decrepit and sick. Like, that's all BS. Like, that is not legit. I mean, looking at like certain blue zones in the world, like you'll see like people who are like 105 years old and they're in better shape than some of like the obese diabetic children in the United States. You know what I mean?
So my girlfriend Alana decided to go off some of her medication she was on because she wanted to be more natural in her cycles or whatever, and I'm really proud of her for that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I went off of, like, it's going to sound like a not very big deal after this conversation we're having, but I went off of Zyrtec 2 years ago because I, was hearing all this stuff about Pfizer for the vaccines, the COVID vaccines, and I saw on the side of the pill that said it was made by Pfizer, and I was like, wait. And I just looked up the side effects, and I was like, this isn't even worth it, and I just started using honey.
Yeah.
And I don't deal with the allergies that I used to deal with.
I've heard a lot of people say similar things, that like using local honey
is
like
hard to get
like
through
raw
at first,
local honey,
but
and it takes a while for your body to acclimate, but even like, you're like, oh, it's not really that big of a deal, right? But for people who are taking any sort of pill like daily, like even if it's Tylenol, like a lot of this stuff that seems really harmless, they do have effects on our body, and some of the side effects, they're not immediate. Yeah, some medications do have immediate side effects that are, very not great. But some of them, especially if you're like taking it over time and it's kind of like the toxicity is building up in your body, slowly over time, that absolutely does affect like our overall health. And I think even like little things like that, like, oh, it's just like, it's just an allergy med, or it's just Tylenol or whatever. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but I think it does, I think it is, like, taking steps like that, I think is great.
So one of the best things I did for myself was going through therapy. And I did that back in 2016, 2017. And, at some point I probably will want to visit a therapist again to work through some other things. And
yeah,
I think it's healthy to want to talk to a therapist.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think having someone to like sift through your thoughts and your experiences with, I think that can be absolutely incredibly beneficial for people.
Especially if you don't feel like you have anyone around that you want to talk to these things or talk to about these things. And the whole thing with Ian, I think that it's there's like a secondary benefit to Ian not being miserable about being in prison. Well, he's in jail right now, but he's going to be in prison. And it's just that the government does not win what they want. They're not getting what they want. And that lady, those old ladies who are going to take money from him in December aren't getting what they want. He's not miserable. His life goes on. And
he also doesn't have a guilty conscience, which is like really incredible.
Yeah. Exactly. Like,
I think that's huge.
People who are bad people every day, they live life with a guilty conscience.
And I think also having like the intellect to be able to like understand what's going on in the situation. So like Ian knew that he was innocent and he knew that he didn't do anything wrong. Like he was able to to be conscious enough to understand what was going on. I've heard of some people who are like, I got raided by the feds and, they brought all these charges on me. So like I must have done something wrong. Like the only reason why they think that they are a criminal or that they did something wrong is because of the response. The feds don't make mistakes, so I must be a bad person. And it's hard for me to kind of fathom, but like a lot of people kind of have that perspective in their mind. It's like they're so insecure within themselves and their own beliefs that like you should know if you're doing right or wrong. With like regardless of any outside intervention,
people,
you know what I mean?
Can be so influenced by other people's opinions in that way. There's this woman I like to listen to sometimes on YouTube. I don't always agree with her, but she's interesting and she researches things really hard. And her name is Sonia, and her channel is Truther Girls. Like, I found her because she's talking about colloidal silver, and she apparently is very autistic. And she said that when she was a teenager, she was very weird, and that like autism wasn't a huge thing, especially for women. So she wasn't prescribed yet. She was really weird, and like somebody told her that they like assumed she was a drug addict, and because of that, she assumed she should become a drug addict. She was like, I know that sounds so weird. Like, it doesn't make sense logically, but that's just how my brain works. Because people thought I was a drug addict, I decided I should become one.
Yeah, it's almost like when people are treating you a certain way, you almost like kind of become that. It's like, well, if you already think I am, then I might as well should be. And obviously, like in your brain at the time, like it's not so clear cut. It's not like so black and white, because anybody would be like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, right.
But it's like that programming kind of like everyone treats me this way. So now I'm starting to become this way.
This all goes right back to what you were saying about people believing that life is not under their control and their health is not under their control just because they've been told their whole lives, oh, well, your genes control everything. There's no way to turn anything around. Oh, if your grandpa died from cancer, you're susceptible to it.
Yeah.
They haven't learned about epigenetics because that's suppressed in science in colleges and stuff like that. Less and less so now, but it was definitely...
Yeah, I think it's... I was under the impression that epigenetics was like a new-ish science.
So was I. I had
new.
A psychology professor back when I was doing college a few years ago actually talk about epigenetics. So I know it's being talked about.
But I get like a lot of... Well, and this is the issue. So like a lot of doctors, especially like a lot of primary care providers or whatever, they're not even taught nutrition, and that's like huge when it comes to health. But also, they're not, like, if you went to medical school 30, 40 years ago, and that is all, like, your medical knowledge, I mean, like, a lot of these old doctors are so, like, their information is so out of date.
Yeah.
Some doctors are good and they'll like constantly want to be like researching things and learning new things. But typically it's just like, nope, this is what I'm taught. Like they're ingrained in their ways. They're like, no, this is how it is. I'm analyzing your symptoms. And because that's what you're taught in medical school, you treat the symptoms. And then once you reframe that to maybe a more like functional style of doctor or holistic doctor where it's like, no, I'm not going to treat the symptom. Like your symptoms is your body trying to communicate a message with you. The symptom isn't the problem. The symptom is the message. And to reflect that, to treat the whole body and the whole person, to be able to heal everything that you are and not just mask symptoms. I mean, that is how we truly heal. But it's like, medical doctors aren't taught that. Like that's not what their purpose is really. So I think when we're going to a lot of these people for answers, it's like they don't even have any clue. They don't know what epigenetics is. Like that's not their specialty. You know what I mean?
A lot of doctors, they still believe basically the whole thing that genes control your life. And a lot of people will tell you things like, oh, you should go get yourself tested to see what genes you're carrying.
Yeah, so I can manifest that for myself? Right. Yeah, no thanks.
Well,
I know, it's like, I am kind of being like a little like facetious about it, I guess. It's not necessarily a bad thing.
But maybe if you knew about something that wasn't good, you would be able to change it. Most people, they're going to find out about something bad and be like, well, now I can't have kids. They will have it.
Yeah, they're like...
Things like
that's
that.
what I'm saying. Like people manifest it and it's like, well, my father died of diabetes, so I'm just destined to get it instead of being like, maybe I should eat better. You know what I mean? Like exercise. And sometimes knowing like things you're predisposed to is beneficial. But I think overall, if you just work on, I think, like diet and exercise and lifestyle like isn't a one size fits all thing for people.
Sure.
But I think
especially if you're a picky eater, maybe find ways to mitigate your
supplement
or mitigate your risks or whatever.
But I think like typically things that are unhealthy for like smoking, alcohol, drugs, sugar, like whatever, like those things are like typically unhealthy for everybody, right? And like certain people have different sensitivities and stuff like that. But I think typically, even if you don't know what you're predisposed to, if you just work really hard on like being the healthiest, best version of yourself, like that's going to do way more for you than like understanding what genes you have. Yeah, exactly. It's just like you don't even need to get super sciencey about it. Like just be healthy.
One thing about life, like from my perspective, is it's not like I've never been through hard things. It's not like bad things have never happened to me. But ever since I was a little kid, I just have had this attitude, and I don't know where it came from. I was just kind of born with it, where I always assume that things are going to work out for me. Like
that's great.
And it sucks because I can't just translate it to people. Like my sister is only 16 months older than me, and she would ask me and my friend at the time, her and our other friend would ask me and our other friend, how do you guys do so well in school? Like, how do you guys do so well in tests? Like,
because you just expect that you're going to, right?
And we were both trying to explain this to them. We were like, listen, we just don't worry about it. And they were just like, well, how do you just not worry about it?
It's hard to believe. And I think we talked about this on a show with Captain before. I don't know. Maybe you were there. Maybe you weren't. I think you were, though. But like we all know that person, right? Like when you're talking about like the law of attraction or like manifesting, we all know that person that is like lovely, just like super positive. They're super friendly. And it's like, wow, she really has everything going for her. Like she's smart, she's pretty.
Thank you.
She's friendly. But you know what I mean? Like that. And it's like, wow, like good things just happen to her. Like this is like how? And it's like, maybe it's because she's expecting that and is just drawing those things in. And we also all know that person that is super negative, is like, everything bad always happens to me.
Life
and it's
is
like,
against me.
Yeah,
Life hates
it
me.
is, because you're calling that in actively every single day.
That's why I think the best thing people can do for themselves, for their state of mind, which helped me a lot earlier this year, was to just tell themselves, life is good. Not even like your own life, but the world, the universe, life is a good thing that we're living in. It's simple. 603-283-6160. More coming up. Don't go anywhere. It's Free Talk Live.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. The UN says 92 of its relief workers for Palestinian refugees have been killed in Gaza since the start of recent hostilities between Hamas and Israel. This is the highest number of UN aid workers killed in a conflict in the history of the United Nations. Will Denslow reports.
United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says the number of UN workers killed in Gaza over the past month is more than any comparable period in the organisation's history. UNRWA says at least 66 internally displaced people have been killed while sheltering at their facilities in Gaza since the war began on October 7th. On that day, Hamas conducted an assault on Israel, killing roughly 1,400 people and took more than 240 hostages. The Ministry of Health in Gaza says more than 10,000 people have died since then, as Israel has moved to destroy Hamas in the Palestinian enclave. Guterres says the huge loss of civilian life in the Gaza Strip shows that something is clearly wrong with Israel's military operations. William Denslow, New York.
The Commissioner of London's police force is resisting pressure to ban a pro-Palestine march on Remembrance Weekend, when the UK traditionally remembers soldiers who died in World War I. Stuart Smith reports.
The Metropolitan Police has asked the organisers to urgently reconsider the timing of the march, but has stopped short of banning it. It claims officers can safeguard remembrance events and keep the public safe, in part by forcing the march to take place away from the most sensitive areas of London. The Prime Minister says he will hold the Commissioner accountable for that. Rishi Sunak says his personal view is that the marches are disrespectful, and he'll meet the head of the police force to discuss what measures they're taking. The pro-Palestine protests have been held each Saturday for the past few weeks in response to Israel's fight against Hamas in Gaza after Hamas killed hundreds of civilians in Israel.
Lawmakers in the United States have subpoenaed Joe Biden's son and brother as part of their impeachment inquiry into the president and his family. Congress's House Oversight Committee is seeking depositions from Hunter and James Biden, as well as business associate Rob Walker. From Washington, Benji Heyer reports.
It's a remarkable step, but one that Republican Party politicians have been threatening as they intensify their investigation. They allege that the Bidens engaged in corruption, influence peddling, bribery, that they benefited financially from Joe's position then as vice president. The White House vigorously denies any wrongdoing and says that Joe Biden had no involvement in his son Hunter's business dealings, arguing this impeachment effort is a political move. There is no clear evidence, the administration insists, to support claims of high crimes and misdemeanors. That'll do little, though, to halt these attempts to bring down the president as the country enters election year. Benji Hart.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Radio that you control. 603-283-6160 is the number for you to call. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Riley.
And Nikki.
And I wanted to take a second to tell you that this hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? I am. You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands, including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. What about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn more about Dash. That's dash.org. The other thing I want to tell you about that's supporting this show is the AMPS program. AMPS stands for Amplify, Market, Promote, and Support. That's amps.freetalklive.com is where you can go to learn more. And I would like to thank Robert Haley, who's a silver level member of our AMPS program. Thank you so much, Robert, for supporting us. That means that he's giving at least $5 a month to be a supporter of the show, and we really appreciate it. You can learn more and help support us like Robert at amps.freetalklive.com. In the last segment, we were just kind of going off about something that Tim said, the caller, Tim. So I think we kind of covered that. We're talking about just being positive. Well, unless you guys had anything else you wanted to add about.
I mean, I could go on for like days about that. So.
I think all of us could talk about it for a while. I think it's important to try and work through the things that you're struggling with in your life. And if you need to consult a psychiatrist or whatever to help you through that, or a psychologist or a therapist, utilize your help.
Absolutely. And I think, I think our biggest message there was like, you have power over your life, and like you can make choices to actively make your head a better place to be.
Yeah.
It's a great way to put it. But before that, we were talking about this article from Reason.com. Is that what it is? Yeah, com. It says, yes, anti-Israel protests are free speech. It says that a group of, what were they? It says just some college students penned a guest essay in the New York Times, and they were arguing that pro-Palestine activity and protests on college campuses are not protected under the First Amendment. They're not free speech, and that universities have a, quote, moral responsibility to combat it. They say, this person, Gabriel Diamond, it's the whole group. Gabriel Diamond, Talia Dror, and Julian Letterman, students at Yale, Cornell, and Brown respectively, said free speech, open debate, and heterodox views lie at the core of academic life. They are fundamental to educating future leaders to think and act morally. The reality on some college campuses today is the opposite. Open intimidation of Jewish students. Mob harassment must not be confused with free speech. And I mean, if something like that is going on, like people are going up to and intimidating and mob harassing somebody just because they're Jewish, that's wrong.
That's
Absolutely.
Crazy.
Yeah, that would be a little harsh on these people who are being harassed. It's not appropriate to harass somebody.
No. So what are they saying? These are like pro-Palestine people, or is this something else?
No, these are pro-Israel people, and they're saying that the pro-Palestine activity on college campuses is not legitimate free speech, and I think that they're wrong. Obviously, harassing someone is a different thing than doing a protest with your displaying your opinions. It says the authors point out several examples of clearly unprotected speech that have unfolded in recent weeks, such as online posts made by a Cornell student who threatened to shoot up a kosher dining hall, as well as several instances of physical violence against Jewish students. And those are obviously not protected free speech, clearly, like is what the author is saying.
Yeah, that's kind of wild, because I don't know how like all of that. I'm going to make an assumption about this person. Typically, if you're going to Cornell, you're probably a liberal. But it's just so crazy how like a lot of these like hyper left-leaning people have came like full circle. Like they're I don't know. It's just like
they have no principles.
Yeah, it's just like you went so far in wokeness. Like they do the same thing with race, right? Where it's like they are like so anti-racist, quote unquote,
Anti-hate speech.
that they become racist.
Yeah, they start saying, "Oh, we got to protect certain groups of people."
Yeah, they're just not
they're
as
like,
smart
well,
as us.
well, you know, yeah, they're like, well, they don't have access to resources, and they're really dumb, and like all this stuff. And it's like
Sarah
how is
talking
that?
about-
Like that's like literally like a racist comment.
It's
what?
racism in reverse. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, it's like, how did we just like go so far in the other direction?
I personally
don't know,
wouldn't
but-
want myself and everyone of the same race as me to be spoken about the way Sarah talks about New Mexicans by these like woke people who act like they're like helping you. But taking a break from this story, I'm going to go to David in New Mexico. David, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I heard you beating up on the cops again today, so I thought I'd give you another technique that works for me at least. Is when and I've told you stories in the past. I've been arrested on multiple occasions wrongly by cops, so I've been mistreated as much as or more than most people. But what I still find works, aside from last time I told you, if I get the mindset and I start treating them like I'm not their I'm not a general or even a colonel level, but like one rank above them.
Oh, if they're private, I remember you saying this.
Yeah, like if they're a private, I might be their sergeant or whatever, and so that works. But another thing I do is when I catch them doing not what I would like them to do or behaving in a way that they shouldn't be behaving, in my opinion, or whatever. What I say is along the lines of hey, I and the rest of us, we need you to be on our side. Okay, so please stop doing this, or you might find it better if instead of doing that, you do this and this.
Does that really work?
You're your own person. Yeah, it works. I catch them. Even whether immediately or usually the most fun ones are, days later, weeks later, months later, I'll catch them acting in ways that I suggested would be helpful from my point of view, and I actually catch them doing that.
Huh, that's interesting.
You're like breaking into their programming.
Yeah, it's like the psychological training or something. Well, they are kind of this. I usually don't like to like generalize people, but I guess I will in this case. I feel like most cops are like herd animals, right? So it sounds like that's what David's kind of doing is like, I'm going to uprank you, and since they're kind of just not brainless, because that's a little meaner than I want to be. But
see if this is helpful. There are ones that are, and I can't think of a better word. So incorrigible ones, you're not going to get through to them. They're just going to keep being themselves, being how they're being. But they're the minority from what I see. The majority of them, it's like they're just going along with how we've always done things, and they're not really on board with it. They're just doing it because that's how they've been told how to do it. That's how they've been shown how to do it. And then somebody comes along and says, hey, could you do this? We really need you to be working with us instead of with them. And if I need to, I'll describe who they are. And it's like, well, oh yeah, I know. They're not saying this, but it looks like they're thinking, yeah, I never thought about that, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, and yeah, that probably would be better. That would be easier. And then I catch them doing it.
That's interesting. I'm actually like kind of surprised that works. I'm not surprised by you like upranking them, like acting like you have more authority over them. That to me like makes a lot of sense. But the like psychology behind the like suggestion based model, it's interesting, and I'm
It's really
surprised that
interesting.
actually works.
Thank you for the call, David. And I do like that idea. I feel like I wouldn't be as good at it because, like most men, it doesn't matter if they're a cop or not. They're not just going to accept my authority over them. And I've just learned how to work around that with, like, anytime I've had to, like, tell a man what to do. Obviously, I'm not saying every man either. It's, like, most. But I think it's really interesting that if you have the ability to do that, you should try it. I always wonder how seriously do cops take things whenever you say something that makes like a lot of sense. Like how deep do they think about it? Because like Ian is in jail right now, and there's this one guard that a lot of people don't like. Ian hasn't had any specific problem with him or anything, but he was telling me the story that this guard that a lot of people don't like, he tries to enforce all these rules that the other guards don't enforce.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it's technically the rule, but the other guards never enforce it, only this one. And this guy was telling him, like, hey, man, you know, like, you're doing all this stuff you don't have to be doing. Like, what made you get this job doing? And the cop tried to say, hey, man, no, seriously, I'm like on you guys' side. I'm not the one keeping you guys in here. Can you believe it? He said he's not the one keeping you guys. He literally is the same person that has to tell him to lock up.
Yep.
How can you say those words out loud and not think, wait, what am I talking about?
Yeah, it's like you're literally the guard. Like your job is to make sure these people don't escape.
It's crazy. And it's silly. And I just wonder.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance there is. No, they must not, because they're like, well, you know, I'm not they're like placing, and that's what cops do a lot. They'll like pass the blame. So, and I think a lot of people, like not even just cops, this. I think a lot of people do that where it's like, you know, I'm doing something unethical, but I can't confront my brain with that because that's going to be like way too much. So really, you know, I am holding you hostage here. But we're going to pass the blame to the judge or the jury because they're the ones that convicted you guilty and, you know, some other cop brought you here, so they're more at fault.
Right.
Even though I have a gun and I'll shoot you if you try to leave.
Right. Well, that's a really interesting subject. I kind of forgot that David had talked about that before, but maybe more people listening will try to utilize that. I think it's really interesting.
It's definitely a peaceful method, which I appreciate.
But going back to this story about, he was just talking about how some people were posting in Cornell, or no, this one guy was posting in Cornell saying he was going to shoot up a kosher dining hall, and there were other instances of physical violence against Jewish students. It says, however, many of the other examples the authors single out are blatantly First Amendment protected expression. Quote, masked students have chanted slogans such as "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," which many view as a call for the destruction of Israel. Others have shouted, there is only one solution, Intifada revolution. They write, additionally, Diamond, Drower, and Liederman noted several examples of professors who made offensive statements about the terrorist attack, lamenting that, to the best of our knowledge, none of these professors have received meaningful discipline, much less dismissal. But despite their claimed commitments, the authors make a plain-faced call for censorship by invoking university speech codes. Quote, the codes of ethics of universities across the country condemn intimidation and hold students and faculty to standards of dignity and respect for others. Campuses are at a crossroads. The leadership can either enforce these ethics, or these places of learning will succumb to mob rule by their most radical voices, they write. Simply affirming that taunts and intimidation should have no place on campus isn't enough. Professors violating these rules should be disciplined or dismissed. Student groups that incite or justify violence should not be given university funds to conduct activity on campus. I kind of hate that they're throwing all these things in together. Like, they're acting like inciting or justifying violence is the same exact thing as just saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Yeah.
Like, your speech isn't the same thing as actual violence.
I agree with that. Yeah, your speech is definitely not violence. It's also, you know, threats are different than actual violence too.
Yep, threats are different. If you're threatening to do something and it's believable that you could actually act on it, then that's not protected speech, which is understandable.
Mm-hmm.
It says, while universities should step in and punish students who actually break the law, like those who mount violent threats or engage in a heckler's veto to prevent other students from speaking, not to mention those who engage in actual physical violence, the authors are advocating for sweeping censorship of offensive anti-Israel speech while implying it isn't really free speech at all. Speech is protected unless it falls into one of the narrow categories of unprotected speech. Zach Greenberg, an attorney at the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, a First Amendment nonprofit, tells Reason. Greenberg adds that a protest chant like "From the River to the Sea" would be a political slogan. It's not specific, it's not targeted, it's not directly threatening any individual people with violence, so it would be protected by free speech. And I think it's crazy this guy understands this, but most of Congress still voted to censure that lady for the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's crazy that this has to be explained.
Yeah.
It is. He goes on, to be able to think freely, you have to be able to offend others, to discover our own views, and to challenge the status quo. And it's hard to do that without offending others or maybe potentially offending others. Students shouldn't have to risk their educational careers walking on eggshells by censoring themselves at universities that are seeking to punish offensive speech. Even though pro-Palestine activism on college campuses has frequently involved inflammatory rhetoric and even open celebration of Hamas's terrorism, that's pretty terrible, this speech is clearly protected by the First Amendment. While moral outrage against this speech is more than justified, calls for universities to stifle it are contrary to the values of free speech, open debate, and heterodox views. The authors say that they hold dear, which is how they opened it up. So, yeah, the other thing is, it's not like these college campuses are actually private companies. Like,
yeah,
there's nothing wrong with a private company deciding,
or a private university.
University deciding that they are going to not allow some kind of certain thing, and well, if you applied, you agreed to that. These universities are at least partially funded by the public, and I don't think if you receive $1 in public funding, you should be able to do things like tell people what they can and can't say, but they do it every day. It's crazy. That's all from that. We talked a lot about Palestine tonight, but we do have some good news. This is from the AP, so apnews.com. Ohio votes to legalize marijuana for adult recreational use, becoming the 24th state to do so. 24 is, almost half. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Surprised it's not more.
Says, Ohio voters approved a measure legalizing recreational marijuana on Tuesday, defying Republican legislative leaders who had failed to pass the proposed law. And that's kind of what's interesting about this to me. It wasn't just a law was put in and then the reps voted for it and now it's law. It was the legislative session that had just passed. I guess they didn't want to pass it. We'll get into it, but they didn't pass it, and then the citizens got to override that somehow.
I think so. I think that's what it's saying. To me, this is really exciting because I think cannabis is one of these things that's largely misunderstood. I think we've had one of our hosts, Daryl W. Perry, once said, regulate marijuana like tomatoes, and I tend to agree with that. I don't think it's a dangerous drug like heroin or cocaine or methamphetamine. I think it's a class in and of itself. I don't think it's very dangerous. I think cannabis does have spiritual uses as well as a sacrament for most people. Well, maybe not most people, but some people. So to keep it as a criminal act to possess a plant that we can just easily grow in our yard is such a stupid idea.
It is. It's so stupid, and it does nothing but ruin people's lives.
Yeah.
It says the passage of Issue 2, which is, I guess, what the law is called.
Yeah.
Makes Ohio the 24th state to allow adult cannabis use for non-medical purposes. Quote, marijuana is no longer a controversial issue, said Tom Herron, spokesman for the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. That's
Yeah, I'm not into that either. I don't think marijuana should be regulated like alcohol.
We should also unregulate alcohol.
I wish it was yeah, right.
Like I should be able to have a distillery in my house if I want to and make moonshine.
Right.
Nikki Moonshine?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I wish he was the spokesman of the Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Tomatoes. Somebody should create
right.
that.
Yeah, we should.
Ohioans demonstrated this by passing State Issue 2 in a landslide. Ohioans are being extremely clear on the future they want for our state. Adult use marijuana, legal and regulated, unquote. But it is what they voted for. It says, the new law will allow adults 21 and over to buy and possess up to 2.5 ounces of cannabis and to grow plants at home.
Wow. That's really nice.
A 10% tax will be imposed on purchases. Not as nice. To be spent on administrative costs, addiction treatment, which I feel like has nothing to do with marijuana, right?
Treatment?
Yeah.
Are they saying that they're going to use marijuana for addiction treatment?
Well, they're saying that that's what the tax will go to, but that could be
stupid.
part of
well,
it.
I doubt they're going to do that, but I've been saying this for a long time that we should stop using methadone for drug treatment and start using weed.
Sounds a lot safer.
You know what I mean?
I think you're right.
I think a
weed is
lot of people,
safer.
and a lot of the patients, I'm sure would be a lot happier.
Actually, I heard this terrible thing. I don't have the story in front of me, but I guess Florida was trying to do that, like allow that to be an option for companies.
Yeah, using medical marijuana.
Yeah.
In treatment, yeah.
And what's his name? The governor
DeSantis.
Is. Yeah, DeSantis shut it down.
Deceptive DeSantis.
Yep. Well, he shut that down. He's not allowing businesses to use marijuana to treat their patients. And
Forget that, dude.
Oh my gosh, DeSantis did something against freedom?
Yeah, that's extremely against freedom.
The best guy ever.
Most people don't get that.
I'm not surprised he's doing things against freedom.
No, he's not for freedom, so that's why.
No, not a freedom man.
So this 10% tax will be imposed on purchases and spent on administrative costs, addiction treatment, municipalities with dispensaries, and social equity and jobs programs supporting the industry itself, which is so stupid. Like, the marijuana industry needs to be supported. Like, it wouldn't do well on its own. Like, people don't want to buy marijuana.
It was flourishing when it was illegal, so
Right.
I'm sure, like, removing that will, I don't think it needs any help.
Yeah,
People
pretty
like
much.
pot.
People tend to grow pot. People like it. If you keep it as a criminal act to grow it or use it, they're gonna do it underground.
Yeah,
they're gonna find ways.
And they're going to make a lot of money doing it.
Absolutely.
The election's outcome represents a blow to GOP lawmakers, Republican Mike DeWine, and business and manufacturing organizations concerned about its impact on workplace and traffic safety.
What?
But,
oh my god!
I mean, I don't get that, because if you're a business, you can still say, personally, our employees are not gonna, they're gonna need to be tested. So.
Yeah, you can still drug test people even for legal stuff.
Says, but as a citizen-initiated statute, the law is subject to change. Republicans who remain opposed to it in the legislature are free to make tweaks to the law or even repeal it, though the political stakes are higher now that the voters have approved it. And in my opinion, I feel like what's going to happen is they're going to tweak it to make it a little, like, crappier.
Yeah, well, that's what they do, right?
But
that's
they probably won't repeal it.
That's politics.
Yep. Just add in something
They take good things and they make it bad.
Yep,
yeah.
pretty much.
Politics.
Well, I'll probably just add something in that's like, oh yeah, and also we're going to fund the police more, or some crap like that. Among concerns raised by opponents that lawmakers may revisit is the measure's tax structure, which earmarks none of the earnings for Ohio counties that administer social services programs directed at drug use, addiction, and other issues that could rise due to Issue 2's passage. Which, I don't know, is that proven? Like, in Colorado, have we seen other drug use skyrocket because marijuana's been legal for so long?
No,
I don't know.
I doubt it. It probably went down.
Probably. That's what I would guess. I mean,
you know what I
don't
mean?
know.
You know how many people can probably, like, even get off their, like, medications just if they can smoke pot? You know what I mean? Like,
it says the fight is not over. Smart approaches to marijuana action. President Kevin Sabet had said in a statement. He called on state lawmakers to eliminate provisions of Issue 2 that would allow for commercial sales, advertising, and production at a minimum. Republican Ohio Senate President Matt Huffman said lawmakers may also reconsider questionable language regarding limits on THC, the compound that gives marijuana its high. Well, that's all we have for tonight. freetalklive.com is where you can go to get more from us. Thank you for listening. Thanks for calling in. Peace.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money